pretty big, would be pretty much, not need to discuss, but if you need a vehicle, personnel, equipment, or whatever, this would be the chance to do it. So just want to give everybody a chance to.
No, every time they
Make
say,
an appointment, Bill.
they
Make
say,
an appointment, Bill.
you're shopping every time they
Oh,
tell.
right.
Deb tells me every time you're shopping.
Right.
I have a memo that your horse is double parked out there and they will throw it.
Yeah. That's right. Get some.
I got
So this is what it is. It's going to be informal. If you have any questions for any of the department heads, please feel free, council members,
Have
just,
them give me that sticker.
ask about procedures or questions about anything that they may have with their budget. So don't have to raise
It's
your
by his
hand,
mouse pad.
just fire away there. So that's what this is all about. This is gathering of information from everybody. So there'll be no decisions made today. It's like I say, this is just information gathering, chance for everybody to present their wish list or needs or whatever. And we're grateful that everybody can be here and opportunity to do this. So, Susan, have you got anything you want to add?
Jody has put together 2 packets for each day. Bill, they are in order, so don't take it apart, okay? And they're separated. Well, you're over there, so we can't help you. And they're separated by orange pieces of paper, so you know.
I am
When we
so glad
get-
you have true faith in me. This
Yeah.
is brought on because our president couldn't leave me alone and let me sit over there. By Jody, so I could, hey, there's open seat, Jody, get over here.
So,
I need her over here. You can't hear out of here anyway, so no, that's the only one I can hear out of, that's why I'm over here.
there's also a blue and pink sideways sheet like Jody's holding up. Those are the current capital needs plans put together. I have noted certain ones that are not paid from county or CUMCAP development. So on the last page, you will see that I have subtracted that out so you know how much they're actually wanting. I'm trying to think if we have anything else special.
Why was IT moved over?
Okay, so there are multiple things that have been moved over to county general. Because when some of the items were moved to CUMCAP, it was because county general was so depleted, we didn't have any cash reserves, and we were trying to help the general fund increase, and so we moved some that could qualify. Our CUMCAP is getting very low, and so I put IT, some of the courthouse, the extension office, I put some of those items back in the general fund where they really should be funded from, to help be able to have money in CUMCAP for large expenditures that might come about. Did it have an amount?
A separate 5-year
And that's on here.
plan. I have said,
It's not in here for any.
So we want it for next year or 2 years?
well, you're gonna hear, because after I submitted my budget, I got a thing that
Okay.
And I think it really should be in there so that she has them for the.
Okay.
I got numbers now.
Okay, so that being said, anything like that you notice like that, let us know, and we will update the spreadsheet. Also, because this is presentations, I have not advertised anything, so if, like, Holly comes up and needs to add something, I can still add to what was requested because I haven't advertised for public hearings at the end of August yet. So we can, if there's something right away today that you know needs to change, we can do changes on the fly as we go before we actually have to advertise. At least 10 days prior, whatever
10
that,
days.
whatever that calculates out to be. Other than that, I don't think we have major special things. I've got some special things, some different tidbits that I will cover as certain departments come in, like public defender and community corrections. They're community corrections tomorrow, but I'll just fill in little pieces as we go, and so that we all can make notes on their presentation. And this year, we decided to print these all for you, so everybody had them to be able to write notes on, to be able to keep. It is also in your OneDrive online scanned in, so the packets. It should be under
I
budget.
got tomorrow's.
That's under council packets. There's one that will say budget. A budget folder.
Great packet. Thank you for this capital needs. I think it's
Yeah, so when Holly does hers, we'll add in amounts.
Doing it that way is something promoting that they've done.
The only thing that needs to be changed on there, Susan and I talked about, is separate. Relation down to see how much short what we need.
And the other thing, and I don't know if this can come from you guys when you talk to your departments, the other hard thing about this 5-year plan is we have many that will tell us what they would like or need, but they don't have dollar amounts. Or they don't actually tell us like which year they want it in. Things like that. We contact as many as we can. Lita and I discussed the thing that she had put. So we contact the best we can, but we can only make the spreadsheet
Yeah.
with
And
as
that-
much information that we can get.
Right, and just to touch on that really quickly, I was hoping that possibly there could be better clarification, because that's the way that the department heads have always turned them in the past. Lita and I talked about it. Typically, they send a letter that just says, I'm thinking we're gonna need paint, or we have water damage, or whatever the situation is. But a lot of times, I don't think folks necessarily know what steps to take. I don't know if that's something that, if it's specifically regarding electrical, if it's specifically regarding computers, that they get with IT, and IT can put that estimate for them, or if it's something that Larry can look at maintenance-wise, and they can ask him. But I feel like that's one thing that I can work on with them, because I feel like this is only as good as the information we ask for, but also we can't expect the recorder to be able to know how much it's gonna cost to do X. And so anyway, I'm working on that. So that way maybe we can have better.
A lot of the big ticket items are mechanical.
Maintenance.
Maintenance person that we have, getting them furnaces, air conditioning, chillers,
Yeah.
all of this other stuff that really is big ticket. I want to get surprised about. That's the kind of thing that should be in here, so we see that that's coming.
For sure.
Some of it's easy enough.
Yeah.
3 squad cars every year, 5 squad cars every year, whatnot.
So, we did, not we, Jody did put in if they gave us any kind of letter or plan, we did put that in with their section.
It'll be at the back of their section, like Holly
Of this.
specifically, it has her budget printout, and then the letter that she submitted, or her 5-year plan or whatever, it's in there with that. So it's just at the very back of it, Bill.
Should we,
Not even paying attention.
Once you need something, you can throw that at him.
Okay, that's your fault, you moved me over there. I was just thinking if I should bring my, mine.
You have one. Right at the beginning.
And then put some, start putting this in a folder. I'll keep more in us.
You
Hole
want,
puncher.
you want me to 3-hole punch it and put it in a binder?
No, I can do that because I know you're overworked. And you're-
Yes,
Last time-
say it.
And last time you were very, very cranky when I walked in.
I was.
But I cheered you up. I had you laughing.
I can get you a 3-hole punch.
No, I think I got a notebook in that drawer there.
Well, I can get you a hole puncher.
I can use it.
okay, a couple things. At 9 o'clock, when we get into session, we're gonna be streamed live, so.
We have
We're on right now. We're on. I started us, yeah.
The other, couple other things here. One is, as you can see, there's a lot of data here. And it's gonna take really everybody's eyes and ears here to kind of digest this. So if you pick up on something, you may be the only one picking up on something that the rest of us haven't. So we really appreciate your input here on this. And same with the department heads. The other thing, and Rick, I don't know if we've ever done this or not, Rick, and Jody here. Should we take a look, and I know we can't, I don't know how we do it, but, there's always cost overruns, we'll budget for police cars and we'll budget for this and this and this. But inevitably, by the time we get to purchase them, 6, 7, 8 months now, there's a 10% increase.
Yep.
Do we need to build a 10% factor in there for cost overrun? We may never use it, hopefully, but at least we're covered in the event that there is an overrun. We missed that.
Are you asking?
No, I heard
in gen-
part of it.
Are you asking in general, Dave, for like all capital needs, or just like purchases like a vehicle? Thank you, sis. Or maybe both,
Just,
or maybe both.
probably for everything, because, things aren't going to be any cheaper.
Yep.
And then what we have today for estimates, cost estimates today are probably going to be exceeded, hopefully
Sure.
not.
So for the most part, like sheriff cars, vehicles, for the most part, they have talked to whoever their normal supplier is, and because we're government, they can kind of give them a heads up of what it's gonna be. And so we haven't run into that a lot from year to year. Like, I've never run into needing more for the sheriff's vehicles than what they have requested, because they've already either allowed for extra when they gave us the numbers, or they already have the numbers
Okay,
set for the
that's great.
following
As
year.
long as we're just-
You can, in the normal operations, see if there's an overrun or under by just that report. When you're at 6 months, you should have used 50%. You can see it fairly easily in the operations budget, but is there a report out of loud that would give us what was budgeted for the year, and this is where we're at?
Yeah, that's,
So that you don't have to do something.
that's what, well, let me look before I say that. That's what Carla provides every month, like a budget to actual report.
Right, but that's the operational side. Is there part of that that shows capital?
Let me look.
I look at the operational.
You know what?
side.
I've never actually made it myself, so let me look.
Okay.
But yes, the system does that.
Okay, well.
Easily.
It is in the operations budget, it shows, but I've never paid any attention as to whether or not the capital piece is there.
Well, and that's a really good question, and Amy Prosser brought that up last year. So as she was discussing capital needs, it was that let's just say Lita comes in and she provides a letter and she says what she thinks she's gonna need. Some of those needs have been on that list for 5 years. Is it because, Lita doesn't know how to facilitate it? Is it because we didn't give her direction on how to facilitate it? But even the cost-wise, like Susan said, for some of those vehicles and that, we do have quotes or we do have a contract locked in of what they might cost. Especially like DART is what I was thinking about, and I realize that's a totally different beast, but if we get some of those purchase agreements, we're locked into those prices. I don't know if that is for everything.
Yeah,
but-
for the most part, I haven't really run into any
Okay.
issues.
I just didn't want us to come up with a shortfall.
Sure.
Right.
Try to avoid all surprises we
Yep.
can.
And that budget to actuary report I'm looking at right now, that is every fund.
Does have the.
It has everything, so you just have to go down to find the 1138 fund. So for instance, the one that she just did for June, we are at, we have 59 point something unspent percentage, 59% unspent. And
Only the CCD.
That's-
Not the bridge portion.
that's what I was just gonna say. So that is, that includes the bridge portion that has to be paid out of the regular fund 1138. So if we look at that, we can see there's been just over 189,000 spent. So at the end of the year, that 189,000 plus whatever else that he spends gets a check written from 4738 and then receipted back into 1138, so that it's coming from the bridge portion of cum cap. It's complicated, but it's the only way we can do it so that at any given time I can tell you what portion belongs to highway out of the 42% that goes to bridges every settlement, if that makes sense.
Susan, Jody, do you have anything else to add here? Anybody from the council have any questions before we get started? We've got about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Anybody wants to take a break before we officially start at 9?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for all.
I'm taking a break.
Judges.
This, the departments are separated.
I thought maybe they're all together.
Putting all the orange pages together? Are you putting all the orange pages together?
Long weekend.
Are you sure you don't want us to punch that and put that in there so you don't mess that
No. Leave me alone.
up? You asked, you couldn't find the second department. It's not even 9 o'clock.
Only one judge will speak.
I don't know how that's happening. They all wanted to come together, so I'm not sure.
This will be Brown's last. Down say started his farewell tour.
I don't even know.
I know. Last year we were.
Because next year it's going to be mandated, so we're just.
Have to have practice till you next year.
When public defender comes, which they're gonna come right after the judges, public defender and prosecutor, those are the two that will have the big push for if they can, if we can offer benefits to their attorneys. I wonder if I should wait till Amy comes up.
Kate was pushing.
So I have the values figured. Amy, we were talking about public defender, prosecutor, and the attorneys and benefits and whatnot. That will be one of the big ticket items. So total cost,
Are we starting officially now then with this?
that's up to you.
Is that? Yes. Well, we'll wait till 9 o'clock.
Whenever you're ready.
Let's wait till 9 o'clock.
That's
That
fine.
way we're- But Rick, HR then has taken a look at. Has taken a look at the, not necessarily the classification, whether it be contract or on this year.
On the public defender, the attorneys.
I think we just need to change the terminology. State's already mandated prosecutors. So the only ones that have been affected are those counties that have Michigan City, Pendleton, Westview, those. But they could turn around next year and make it mandatory law. So I think we need to try to get that out of the forward.
So in a situation, if we don't have enough attorneys and prosecutor, public defender, and we have case overload, and maybe, since Kevin's back there, he can answer this. I'm thinking we probably have to go outside and hire an attorney elsewhere at an hourly rate, correct?
I've been hired in Noble County. Mark and I have a lot more trials.
So obviously, we're not the only county in that boat.
No, there's 3 spots in Steuben County. With a public defender. Rick, one of the things you said was slightly wrong. It's 66%. Or abuts a county with more than it is in there focused on those counties. Yeah. Have to do it. And this has been argued at county council for years.
It's because he's
Okay. I'm going to interrupt you, gentlemen. Call this meeting to order. The July 9th County Council Budget Hearing Session is now in session. First up will be Kevin Likes. Are you?
Dave.
Amy, did you want to do a
Oh,
prayer?
I'm sorry. Yes, Amy. I apologize. Thank you. Amy will lead us in prayer.
Father, we just come before you this morning to thank you for this morning tasked
Amen. Thank you. So, Susan, first up, Superior Court 1 and 2.
Yes.
Nobody here?
Has Carla
One of
responded?
them right now.
There's one.
Good morning, sir. We're going to have you up first.
What's his one?
There you go. Make sure your mic's on, please. Thank you.
Council, make sure your mics are on also. We've had messages that people can't hear already.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ready for me to get started?
We're ready.
All right. Our the budgets of the three courts are very similar to each other and overlap in many ways, which is not a coincidence or an accident. The three judges met in preparing the budgets, and to the extent that our needs were similar, we made our budgets the same. Given the caseloads, there are some differences among the budgets of the three courts. So my intention is to go over a few of the changes and then open it up to any questions that you may have, just in the interest of being efficient and not wasting your time. We did increase our request for part-time salary for the court staff. The reason for that is, without getting into any personnel issues that would be inappropriate to talk about in a public forum, there is some turnover anticipated among the court staff in the next couple of years. And given the specialized nature of what our court staff does, there is going to be a need for extensive training of any new people, which we anticipate will require some overlap where the people who are on their way out, it's anticipated and hoped, will train the new people so they don't have to just figure things out for themselves. That will require some extra funding for part-time staff. We are requesting a raise for the court staff of 6%, which I frankly believe to be conservative based on what our needs are. We continue to have great difficulty finding qualified staff whenever positions open. The last time that Judge Brown had an opening for assistant court reporter, he received a total of 0 applicants who had court reporter experience and 0 applicants that had legal assistant experience. And so that's further evidence of what we've frankly been saying here for the last few years, which is that the rate that the government is paying those positions is simply not competitive with the private sector. And so we are requesting that 6%. The line item for other services has increased, I think, for all three courts, but possibly to different degrees. The reason for that primarily is that the biggest consumer among that line item is expert evaluations, primarily psychologists, psychiatrist evaluations for people that either have a claim of insanity or a claim of being incompetent. And I can tell you, based on what I see, that the number of people who have severe mental health issues in this county is doing nothing but go up. And so I anticipate we're going to have more and more of those requests. Those are requests that Our lawyers do a very good job of only requesting when it's absolutely necessary. I have to give our public defender and prosecutors' offices a lot of credit for trying to be as reasonable as they can with the county's money. But the fact is, when these requests come before the court, we have very little wiggle room. We have to grant those in the vast majority of situations. And so, frankly, that's an amount that's going to have to get paid by the county, whether it's in the budget or not. But we thought it would be appropriate to include that in the budget so that information is as transparent as possible. I did want to also mention that there has been traditionally a line item in the Superior Court 1 budget for overtime. We don't often have a lot of overtime because my staff generally prefers to take comp time as opposed to overtime, but I think it's important that it be there because if any of our court staff works extra, they have the option of taking overtime, and we must allow that. So I would request that line item be re-entered and that the $10,000 that has been in there in the past be included. I don't believe that there was a line item in our work pages, but that is my request. That covers what I've got on my plate. Does anybody have any questions for me before we move on to Judges Grimm and Brown?
We can add that overtime. We probably need to get together because it would have been there.
Okay, maybe I missed it.
I think it probably just wasn't provided
Could have been overlooked.
in a manner, so we'll get that added back in.
That would have been for 10K.
Yeah.
Anybody on the council have any questions?
You said your part-time jumped from 2,000 to 8737 because you're expecting changeovers in your office
Correct.
and everything. I think that's a weird number, but anyway.
It's a number that we calculated based on a projected estimate of how much overlap we would need.
And what do you project as overlap? A month? 2 months?
3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks. Okay. Thank you.
What cases did you say about that other service fees?
That is primarily for expert evaluations.
That's what I meant.
There are other things that go into that too, like interpreters and other kind of miscellaneous outside expenses, but that's the biggest one.
I just missed that verbiage. Thank you.
Anything else?
I got a question. So his finished budget is 218. That's going to have to go up to 228, right? Because that 10,000 wasn't added. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Very briefly, Adam pretty much covered everything I had to cover also. The other legal services or other services category, I couldn't agree more with Adam. I tried to check this before I came down this morning. In 2022, I don't think I had any mental health examinations for competency or sanity. I've had 3 so far this year, and I got another one in yesterday or the day before. So again, I think it's just a recognition that that is an issue that is becoming a bigger and bigger problem for the judges and for the public defender's office in DeKalb County. Ultimately, the judges are the gatekeepers of that. We have to decide whether or not it's warranted. I can tell you I have never rejected a competency or sanity evaluation. And there's the primary reason for that is it was warranted, number one. Number two, the post-conviction relief consequences if we don't do it, and later they're able to convince the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court that we should have done that, then we got to do it twice. Really expensive. So again, the other legal services side of this is really important. Number two, and maybe Susan answered it, I didn't realize it. My staff has typically preferred to have time off rather than to be paid overtime. And where I can accommodate that, that's what I do. I didn't realize until, I think I was talking to Judge Grimm about that, I don't even have an overtime line in my budget. I don't remember being a part of any discussion where that got deleted, and maybe it was just one of those things that happened and nobody noticed it. I don't have it. I am done at the end of the year, as all of you know. Pat Jessup, who will assume that reign, may have a different attitude about letting the staff off versus paying overtime. And particularly as he gets started, he may not be able to have them go on. He may need their assistance all of the time that first year or 2 or 3 that he is there. So I would like to have an overtime line item added. I know the judge's Superior Court has 10. I think last year,
Actually the overtime issue came up about 2 years ago when we were discussing salaries. I believe it started with circuit court, but it did go to the other 2 offices where they were actually working and not getting paid for it, and not having time available where they could take it off. So we tried to correct that, but this was something that could not go forward. It had to be paid. So
your department probably just hasn't used it and utilized it because you were able to give the time off.
Right.
So you just didn't see it, but we could
right,
add it.
I would like that added and put $5,000 in it.
Okay.
Okay? I don't know where.
5,000 in it?
5.
5,000.
Monty, the other thing, I noticed it's in Adams, but not in yours. Did you put in for a new robe for the new judge? I don't see that line item in here.
Because they are gonna be able to take care of it in 2024.
Oh, you're gonna buy it
we don't
this
need
year?
it in
Well,
25.
Isn't that nice of you?
Any other questions, Rick?
No, that's it.
Yeah, Pat and I discussed that, and, he doesn't need to be waiting sometime past the first of the year to get a robe, so he needs one day one. And so I've talked to him about getting that ordered sometime soon, so it's here by the time he assumes the reins. Pay for it this year. And I did that, by the way, with Susan's help and advice and assistance, so thank you, Susan.
We got that.
Anything else of me? I have a bailiff position that is open. I wanted to wait a little bit. Ryan left, I think it was middle of March or something like that. I didn't know where the judge's election was going to go. I really didn't want to hire a bailiff without being able to consult the person who was going to be assuming the reins up there. Pat and I have discussed that. We do have some applications out there. We've narrowed it down to 4, 5, 6 applications. Pat and I and my court reporter are going to begin interviews in the very near future. That is the only position I'm down at this point.
Well, I have it open and was going to, but
I'm sorry?
yeah, I want to make sure I get my detailed notes and have everything. I have a list. No, well, no.
I don't know that I have a specific response to that. I have always been really stingy in my office, both as a prosecutor as well as a judge. I recognize that this is taxpayer money. I have always been extremely careful about spending taxpayer money. The fact that I don't have an overtime budget may be some evidence of that fact. I don't spend money unless I perceive that I've got to do it. So I guess that's my answer to your question. Okay? Anything else?
Have any questions for Monty? Monty, I just want to thank you for all your years of dedication and diligence to the county and the state. You've done a terrific job for everybody connected with your court. And
Thank you. I
very,
appreciate
very much.
that.
And that's not just the court, but also as prosecutor.
Yes. Yes.
How many years were you at the county?
I was the prosecuting attorney for 17 years, chief deputy for 6, and I've been a judge 19. So 36, 37 years, long time. Time to go. Got somebody backing me up, good guy, will be a great judge, so treat him nicely. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have
Sir.
much. I will say that I believe Rick accurately stated how we came up with the overtime thing. It was a issue it developed in my court because of the emergency detention hearings where they would detain a child. I have to hold a hearing within a very short period of time and frequently wouldn't know about it until it was very late in the afternoon. And so we ended up having to stay late.
In other respects, it was never really much of an issue for me because I think everybody knows that when I became judge in January of 2017, I brought my 2 paralegals with me who had already worked for me or tolerated me for 30 years. They were not interested in working any more time than was necessary. That always was a little bit of a struggle for me because for 7.5 years I've been judge, I have always worked at lunchtime. In other words, to keep my workflow very quick and very timely. And I think any lawyer will tell you, I move stuff through my court very, very fast. But I didn't have any staff. My new court reporter is willing to work at lunch. And so we get a lot done during that quiet time, she and I, and of course that is coming out of my overtime budget. The other thing, just kind of following on the heels of what you were being told about the mental health evaluations and stuff like that, that is a significant change in my budget, but I don't know if historically it is clear, okay? When I first became judge, I basically had 0 criminal jurisdiction, and that continued on for some period of time, which was kind of unique for me because I had done a lot of that for over 30 years as a lawyer. It then was decided that it was remarkably more efficient because I have by far the bulk of the Title 4D child support enforcement cases, that the felony non-support cases would be filed in my court. I'm already familiar with the people. We've used the contempt process. We're pretty far down the road. Now they have criminal charges. And it also allowed us to use the same prosecutor who had been involved with those enforcement things. So all of a sudden, I started getting all of the felony non-support cases. Once that happened, I realized that my father used to say as he got older that they had legislated all his knowledge away. In other words, you know a lot of stuff when you're a young lawyer, and then slowly they change all the laws and you realize you don't know anything anymore because they changed all the laws on you. I happened to realize that my sword wasn't as sharp as it should be in terms of handling criminal cases in a general fashion. So I worked with Judge Brown and Judge Squiller, and I became the conflict judge. It used to be if Judge Brown had a conflict, it would go to Judge Squiller. If Judge Squiller had a conflict, it would go to Judge Brown. Now, if either of them has a conflict, it comes to me, which gives me a broad spectrum then of the criminal cases and allows me to stay more up to date on dealing with those kind of cases. What that drives is, I heard the numbers. One of the conflict cases I already have to, and I mean I have to have a psychological evaluation for this particular individual. You couldn't sit in the courtroom for 2 or 3 minutes and not realize that I have to have a psychological evaluation for this person. And I also have another one that I'm almost positive will be filed. So all of a sudden, those kind of budgetary items that were never part of my world have become a part of my world, and I'm already dealing with 2 of them 6 months into the year. So that's a significant change that you wouldn't have seen in the traditional circuit court budget when I became judge. The capital improvement thing, the only thing I want to say on that is thank you.
Welcome.
Jody did that for me. I had no idea what to do with that. I told her the joke. The truth of the matter is, this is your building, it's your facility, how you maintain it and what you do with it is your business, and I respect that. Somebody asked me for a list a few years back, I made one. I don't think any of it's been done, but nonetheless, I did make it. Judge Carpenter, when I became judge, the only real thing he said to me was, he goes, good luck getting hot water in those bathrooms. I tried the entire time I was judge, it wasn't successful. I got 4.5 years left. I can wash my hands with cold water. The truth of the matter is, it was a thing, and it was of concern to me. I wanted it in the staff bathroom during the pandemic. I became convinced that good hand hygiene and stuff was probably a really good plan, and there's lots of people coming in, touching things and everything. So I thought the ability to wash your hands with hot water for, the prescribed period of time would have been nice. Pandemic's over, I think. So it's not a high priority. If you wanted to focus on the one thing that I do think is somewhat important, that is that sound system. If you were to talk to the IT department, I believe they would tell you rather candidly that it's been a patch job ever since I've been judge. It works. We're able to use it. We occasionally have problems right in the middle of hearings, and I have to tell you, they scramble, they get up there, and usually, I can only think of one time when we had to cancel hearings for half a day because they couldn't resolve it. Most of the times, they can fix it pretty quickly. But it's on its last legs. I think everybody kind of recognizes that. And that is a critical part of what the court does. We have to record all hearings. We're required to do it. And if the reporter has to transcribe that for an appeal, they have to be able to understand it. And I've listened to those, and it's amazing that they can even transcribe it. You got witnesses testifying from the witness stand. You got lawyers asking questions. You got the other lawyer objecting, and then you got people just talking when I'm trying to tell them to pipe down. And how they sort it all out and identify and get it done, I don't know, but sound quality is very important in trying to get that done. Everything else, you know, if you redo the sound system, you should bury the cables. I've had 2 lawyers fall from tipping on the cables that are draped around in there. They should be buried, and they should also put extra runs in there so that you can pull wires at a later date, you know, just empty conduit for pulling not only sound cables, but electricity, just kind of make it so it's possible to upgrade without any real effort. The carpet thing is, I know that when they did Adams Court, they did bury the cables there, and they did upgrade the sound system. They got the really cool monitors on the council table, so you can see the documents and stuff. If you haven't seen it, you should go look at it. It's really neat. I don't believe that old carpet, you're going to be able to pull it up and bury the cables and put it back down. I think it's so old, the backing will crack. I think it will fall apart. In a lot of the places, and Jody showed me, they now have the square tiles. They were able to lift them up in Adams Court, I believe, where they needed to do it, and put them back down. That's not the case in circuit court. It's the old rollout carpet. I think the backing is probably, well, I'm probably talking to a few people who have pulled up old carpet before. They probably know what that looks like. Probably not going back down. So those are the only things that I can think of. Anybody have any questions for me?
Judge, in the morning paper, there is a story about the shortage of funding for the area CASA programs. And I know that's not part of this budget, but it is something that you are involved in. Is that something that's going to be coming back to us at some point?
Yeah, I'll tell you, here's the thing, okay? And I have a tendency to just be really candid about stuff, and sometimes maybe I say things that people wouldn't want me to say, but nonetheless, I think the truth is important, okay? The CASA shortage is critical, okay, in our surrounding counties. It's critical. CASA is about to go under. They may or may not survive the year in terms of funding. DeKalb County is very unique because of the county's support of the kind of cases that I handle, okay? I have a contract guardian ad litem, Corey Swagger, which allows me to have someone to perform that function of representing solely the interests of the children, okay? With or without CASA. The other counties do not have that. And so it's, yes, it is a critical function. They are major players in my court. They are very much involved in the family restoration court and trying to get families put back together where we have parents with addiction problems and criminal cases and also have CHINS cases, and we got kids in foster placement, which costs a fortune. And it's bad for kids. They need to be with their parents if we can have safe parents. CASA is a major player in that. I have been assigned just absolutely outstanding CASA people. And I think that's by design. I think they make a real effort to give me high quality because I'm hard to deal with. And I have nothing but the best. So I received a call from Judge Bill Fee in Steuben County. All the judges got together. They've made a very hard sell for me to include in my budget more than what I did for CASA. I do think that we should fund CASA. I do think it is a very worthwhile thing. These people genuinely care about children. They do monitor the situation. They report to the court. The reports I get are absolutely outstanding. I mean, they are high quality. I believe that the CASA workers side of my court are all college educated, and I think they have a lot of skills. The vast majority of the CASA workers that I have encountered came from very dysfunctional homes themselves, and so they have a lot of life experience. Some of them have dealt with family members and other people who have addiction issues. They've dealt with children in those situations right within their family. So yeah, I think it would be great. Where I hit the line, okay, because I do feel like Monty does. This is my money, your money, taxpayers' money. How do we spend it? And where do I really stand by putting it in my budget, which sends a message to you that I absolutely need this? I didn't feel I could do that with the right level of integrity because you do give me a contract guardian ad litem. I would love for you to support CASA to a greater extent. That's in the matching grant. I would. But I didn't like the idea of putting it in my budget because I felt that I want to maintain the relationship that if I put it in my budget, I need it, okay? You're the only county that does this, and I didn't think that I could do that. But it's a thing. It's a thing, and that is the situation, and yes, they are, they're in jeopardy. Yeah, that's the best I can give you on that. The other thing that I'm going to bring up, and I didn't even talk to the other judges about it, and I certainly didn't talk to Patrick about it, even though I visited with him quite a bit recently. One of the things that I would like you to think about, all right, and it's been evolving in my mind for a couple of years now. I would like to see us go to a unified court budget in DeKalb County. In other words, you would have one budget for the judiciary. The judges would get together, they would put their numbers together, we would submit one budget to you, and we would work off that. I believe we all work well enough that that would be extremely effective. It would cut down on the 3 budget issues. We would be able to coordinate amongst ourselves how that works. I think that's really rather common. I have a very hard time believing that Marion County or even Allen County, with I don't know how many courts they got, a lot. I doubt that they have individual budgets for all of those things. So I don't know if you like the idea or don't like the idea. To me, it seems to be more efficient in terms of it allows you to look in one glance and say, this is what the third branch of government costs us. And it would be our job to make it work, but we would spend the time to make sure that the numbers were correct and would accommodate what the yearly needs would be. You're not going to see a hard sell from me on that. It's just, I think it makes sense.
It's a question that I've not ever heard before. I'd kind of be interested in finding what the other surrounding smaller counties are doing. You know, Allen County and Marion County,
Right.
That's a whole different ballgame, but Kosciuszko is a larger county that has multiple courts.
It does, and they may have a unified budget. I think I can say with reasonable certainty that Steuben, LaGrange, and Noble do not. I personally just think it's more efficient. I don't know where the separate court model came from. My guess is it falls in the category of what used to drive me nuts all the time. That's the way we've always done it. Well, that's not necessarily the way you need to do it forever either, okay? It shouldn't really change the numbers. It should just make things more efficient. It should make things a little more efficient. But I'm not married to the idea. I just thrown it out there for you to think. And you'll never see me try to force it. I mean, if you want to stick with 3 separate budgets, I got 4.5 years left. I'm fine. We'll do that. Nothing further?
I have 2 questions regarding CASA. Do they have a director? I knew they went through a director change a while ago.
You know, it changes a lot, okay? Don't quote me on any of this. I'm going to give you the background that I believe that I have, that I believe is accurate. It may be inaccurate because there has been a lot of change and turnover just really recently. So one day, without any pre-announcement, the director who had been there for a while walked in and quit. Pat Martin, who was an attorney who retired, lovely lady in my opinion, kind of stepped in and tried to hold place, if you will. Then former Judge Paul Cherry's wife, Christy Bachman, who had been the director for a very long time, came back and temporarily reassumed the reins. I think she still is doing that. Okay?
She is.
I believe it is
She's
Christy
sending me,
Bachman.
everything I get is from the director of
I knew
Northeast
she came
Casa.
back.
That
Yep.
could have changed, okay? I don't know. She is interim at this point. I heard on the grapevine that maybe she could be talked into not being interim. I don't know. I believe it's Christy, unless it's changed in the last week or two. Christy Bachman, who is Paul Cherry's wife. So
Where does all their funding come from, Judge Graham?
the CASA was at one, really even when I became judge in January 2017, kind of a darling of the Indiana Supreme Court. I'm not saying that they're not still very enamored of it. I believe that they are. But there was a huge push at that time, okay? And so there is grant funding going through the Indiana Office of Court Services for CASA, and then there is matching grants from the counties. They also conduct their fundraisers, which haven't been really generating a ton of money for them. Just recently, I got an email, maybe everybody did, about a golf outing to benefit CASA here, and I within the last couple of days. So they do things like that, but I believe the primary source is grant funding and matching grants from the counties, and not a lot of anything else other than what they can get from their events. They have the Casa Palooza every year and things like that. I think that's it. I don't really know. I'm sure that there are some individual kind-hearted contributions. That happens with almost every organization seeking to do good. There are people that will do that, and I certainly can imagine that some people, when they pass, make provisions to give some money to CASA in their will, but I wouldn't have any idea what that amount would be. Yep. Anything more? Thanks again, Jody.
You're welcome.
Excuse me. Thank you, Judge Grimm. Yeah, thank you. Pardon me. Okay. Mark, you ready? Good morning.
Morning, Mark. So as to the budget, I kept it within the 4%. There was just, if you noticed on my budget, there was a couple of categories we went above 4%, but then we went 0% on a couple other categories, and the whole overall budget I kept within the 4%. That's because of those other service fees is mostly appeals. We've gotten a lot more appeals this year in the transcripts. Those numbers were killing us, so I moved things around. And, you know, my big request, why I wanted to come here, was to talk about the health insurance benefits and perf benefits for the lawyers in our office. You know, I've given you a lot of information on that over the last couple of years. Just a couple other things, just real quick. The attorney shortage, it is real. Steuben County is looking for 2 or 3 lawyers right now. Noble County, I just saw a lawyer last week, Bart Arnold. He just quit there. I think they're looking for 2 lawyers. We're losing a lawyer in about a month, and we're going to lose another lawyer at the end of the year. I have, I think, 5 lawyers here in the courtroom, or in this conference room here, interested in this category. And Ron's here, our public defender board member, and he's in support of this. I know the judges are all in support of this. I just want to let you know a couple of things. We do, I mentioned this before about I don't just make these requests lightly. I think this is an important issue. We save the county a lot of money in certain areas.
Neil's going to be coming up next here. I was trying to get with Claire Mary before she took off to see if she'd agree to informal depositions. Clara didn't really want to do that. She thought that would open the floodgates and our lawyers would be requesting depositions on hundreds of more witnesses. Neil agreed to do it, and now, just since earlier this year, I looked, we've done 15 or 20 informal depositions, and there's no floodgates that are opening on it. And what that does is it saves the county money. Court reporter charges a fee to come in and set up, $120, and they transcribe it, it's another $150. It's about $300 a witness, you know. I mentioned before, the prosecutor's office has a full-time investigator. I put that burden on the lawyers. You know, we are entitled to have a full-time investigator, which that person would have insurance and perf and all that, but I put that on the lawyers. I mentioned that to you before. The other thing is, since we're in that state program, we're saving the county money on a lot of issues. Remember the bat issue? The county was concerned about how expensive that was going to be at the annex. It's not just the public defender's office there. We got the coroner, we got human resources, we got the probation department, you know, there's other departments there. But there was quotes of $12,000, $15,000. We ended up getting it done for like $8,000 some odd dollars. I requested of the state through our program, since it originated, I argued mostly above our ceilings, that we requested for the whole amount and got it. With that quarter, for the janitorial services, and you know, there were some other things we added on there, painting of our office. We got $6,400 back that quarter. The cost of the bats was $8,500. The windows. Remember when they did the windows in the annex building? Again, it's not just our department. We requested and got 1% back for that. I got a grant approved by the commissioners. It's that pilot program that we had talked about this before. They want some information. The Public Defender Commission, they changed their name now. It's the Commission for Public Defense. They want some information to try to figure out how they're going to work this. 12 counties that are going to get the 40% reimbursement. I think you're aware of this. I mentioned it before. So we got this grant. We've been giving them this information now for a couple of months. They're going to pick that by the end of the year, and if we get that, we're going to get 40% back from those two attorneys that are misdemeanor attorneys. Right now, I give you these sheets all the time at the end of the year. I think our quarterly reimbursement money is up to, we're over $100,000 every quarter. I think since we've been in the program, it's up to over $2 million. After this quarter, probably $2.5 million, close to it. We do what we can to get money back for this county, but this is an issue that I'm hoping you take seriously because it is just going to get worse for us. It's an important issue. You notice I don't come in here asking for more money for raises and things like that, but if we're going to keep the people that we have, that we've trained for years, all those things that Dottie sent us, we train our employees, we should keep our employees, our good employees. I think this is an important issue, so hopefully you consider that when you ultimately decide on voting for that. But any questions about my budget or?
Mark, you said you started off with you were about to lose attorneys.
Oh, we are losing an attorney in a month. We're going to lose another attorney by the end of the year.
Okay, if you lose those attorneys, what are you going to do if you can't replace them? What happens?
Well, the hourly rate right now this year is $100 an hour. That's going up to $110. That's the minimum. If we can't find a replacement attorney for them, then the judges are going to have to find some lawyer, and they might have to pay their hourly rate. We talked about that before.
Even when you approach them, you can offer them 110, but if they say, no, I don't want that, I want something more,
right,
you might have to pay more than the 110, correct?
Just the $20 an hour at $100, we looked at that. That's $104,000. so it goes up to 110 next year. It's a real problem. There's been a lot of jumping around, and what's happening is, the reason why is because there's a shortage of lawyers. A lot of lawyers don't want to do the public defense work because their private practice is booming, and they just don't have time. So I'd mentioned it before, I think it's just going to continue to get worse for a number of years until the state's aware of it. They're trying to do things to encourage people to go to law school, but that's going to take some time to get people a law degree. Yes. This just happened at the end of last week on Friday. Okay? Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. Deal with it. I'll deal with it like I normally do, but
And I know that prosecutor's office, I think, needs someone also. So are you two going to be competing with each other as to who can make the better salary proposal to the young attorneys?
It's funny, but it isn't funny, Rick, because I had heard, I don't know if it's true, that we might be losing one of our people to the prosecutor's office. So, I mean, that's what happened. Yeah, and I mean, I feel for Neil. Neil's trying to find somebody for a while now. Yes, and I've mentioned that to you before. They have a full-time investigator. Yeah, and they get perf and health insurance. Because we're in the program, we're supposed to be treated the same as the prosecutors. The way I got around that issue and putting the burden on our attorneys is I have a budget line for $1,000 to use an investigator if you want. And Susan's aware of that, but this goes back a few years. So I did that so that, trust me, my lawyers would love to have an investigator, but I do what I can to save the county money. I stay within the rules. I'm just telling you, this is the issue about the benefits is an important issue I've been trying to work on for a couple of years now because I saw this coming. I did. It's not a ton of time, Amy, but you got to check out the scene. There's other things that they can do when they get busy and they're doing other things that they can go run down and see the client at the jail and say, here, this is what's going on. Interviewing witnesses, very important, so that they don't have to interview the witness. We make the phone calls, we try to track them down. A lot of times that factors in the deposition. If we can't find somebody that an investigator could find, now we got to do a deposition. That costs, so yeah, it's all related. Yeah, it's something I got to look at down the line. But so I've presented a lot of information to you guys in the last year. Hopefully you've read a lot of that, Bob.
Yeah, Mark, you provided the sheet here.
No, that was me.
Okay, Susan did,
I
of the
haven't
costs.
Oh, yeah.
Prosecutor's office and public defender to add those benefits.
Yeah.
But that is not in your budget? You've not included those numbers?
It's never in our budget. Susan, you want to
I
explain?
I haven't got to discuss this yet.
Okay.
So none of that ever shows in his because it's under the commissioners.
Because it's under county general.
So I have it included currently in the general fund with the numbers that you see here so that we can account for it if it goes that way. I also have at the bottom of that in that box, I have what it would cost if there was no 40% reimbursement. The next one is what it would cost with the current 40%. And then the last one is if his new misdemeanor, like if all of his people get to have the 40% reimbursement.
Right.
Which I think is the pilot program that we're doing.
How many employees between the two, prosecuting and,
Total or just attorneys?
well, does this fits under this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
One of the things that's available to us, and I'm not suggesting that we would use it, but legislature gave us the ability a number of years ago to institute a local option income tax
of 0.3 that would be added to our local option income tax, which is limited at 2.5%. Right now, we're doing 2.1 something or other. But it can only go, that can only go to the judicial. So it could pay some of the expenses on the court side, freeing up money for, in the general fund, for the prosecutor's office and for public defender. It's just an option. Not, I don't think there have been a lot of counties that have taken it. There was one county in southern Indiana that took it, that abused it, because they used it for everything: prosecutor, public defender, the courts, probation. And so last year, they've restricted it back that it can only be used for the courts. But it is there, it is available if that funding is needed. And again, I'm not suggesting that we use it, I'm just saying it's there.
Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things that kind of hamstrings you along there is that all the surrounding counties are paying the benefit piece.
Yeah. In Noble County, every public defender gets health insurance and perf. Allen County, every public defender, including the misdemeanors, just like Noble County, get health insurance and perf. Steuben County, they have about 10 and they give half. Half gets spent. They do a weird system there, but about half. It's the people who have been there for a couple of years, as I understand it, and then they end up, people leave, whatever, they will go up the ladder. But it's not everybody gets in Steuben, but they offer to half. We don't offer.
What is your average, I want to put that, working time? I mean, how many years of experience or on these, you're asking for this, have they got? Is it like everyone's got like at least 2 years or average of 2 years of
experience, criminal experience?
Yeah, working for you.
Everybody in my office has at least 2 years. The younger attorneys, Kaylin, how long? Yeah, just over 2 years, yeah. So we have everybody's over 2 years.
So this is something that if we adopt it, we can apply it right now. You're not going to put any limits that they have to work 6 months or 3 months to apply for it? Or do we have an accounting do that?
Gotta be the same.
There's not a waiting period.
Waiting period, okay.
Yeah. And we had talked about this before. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'll do whatever you want me to do. But to get around some concerns that the council had, we can do the contracts. I remember we had that discussion. So, I'm willing to do that.
I appreciate all your efforts. I know you put a lot of time in this, and I know you're looking at every possible way you can save money for the taxpayers and any new grants, fundings, or what. I know you spent an exorbitant amount of time just researching this on your own there, and it's really greatly appreciated there.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just so it's clear, because I'm looking at Susan's chart. So we have four attorneys that are requesting the benefits, and I think I talked to Neil, and what do you got, 1 or 2? You got 4?
4.
Yeah, total.
Yeah, the insurance that I have there reflects the 4 each, the 8 total that we talked about, and we put most of them, I think there maybe only was 2 that we couldn't really find out which plan they wanted, like whether it was just employee or family. So on those 2, if we didn't know, I went with the family, the highest rate, just so it was figured in there.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mark?
I have one. The attorneys that you're losing, are we losing them because of the benefits?
That was in the letter of resignation on the one last week, and it is because of, that's also the one at the end of the year, because that's the person I told you about that's got benefits already, and now I'm going to have to count the numbers. So because I have to count the numbers, I have to lose that person. So it's the benefits for both. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mark. Sure.
Just two observations. One, to the extent any of you have contacts in Steuben County, and I'm not familiar with that 2-year thing, anyone with experience of 2 years or more gets benefits or not. There's been a great deal of turnover in Steuben County recently. The result of that is that they're going to be replacing those people with people who don't have 2 years of experience. They're struggling. They are a disaster up there right now, trying to find lawyers to come in and fill the open spots because there are not benefits available. You can't compete with other counties that have, you just cannot do it. Number two, and I hope this isn't lost on you, Mark has, generally speaking, assembled a really quality staff of public defenders. Our system works better with good lawyers. You can find someone with no experience to come in and work a position, but the problems that creates for the judges, for the probation departments, or the prosecutors, it's a domino effect. The better lawyers you have, the better the system is going to operate. You frequently are going to see that in a smaller number of appeals, a smaller number of post-conviction relief type cases. In the final analysis, getting good quality people working in Mark's office, and he's got good quality people, helps the system. It saves money in the long run. I really believe it would pay in the long run the cost of whatever those insurance benefits are. The system works better with good lawyers, experienced lawyers, and you can't get that without those benefits. Thank you.
Thanks, Monty.
Yes. Yes.
I'd be curious to know what drew all of those really.
I don't know. Ask Mark. Yeah. Right. I can't tell you. Good training maybe is part of it. Right? All right. Thank you.
Would anybody else from the judicial staff like to comment on this? I know it's a big topic here. Mark, you got something else you want to add?
I've been doing this a long time. You know that, right? I know a lot of lawyers. And the lawyers, I get a lot of applications through the years of people who just aren't very good. We laugh about the applications that we get. But there's lawyers that do want to do this work because, you get involved in something in this type of work, you feel good about helping people who can't afford a lawyer. So I have a lot of lawyers who have that, and they feel proud that they're helping a part of society. That's why we have the treatment courts, And as it turns out, we've been very fortunate, and I just have really good lawyers. Now, we've lost some good lawyers. As you know, I brought that up before. As the situation, but what are you going to do? You just move forward. Try to hope to keep our office together. Look, we've been able to keep our office together for the most part until now. But these other counties are having trouble. We're close to having that same trouble. So it's an important issue. I just hope you take it seriously. Thanks.
Mark, the counties that offer the perf and insurance benefits, is that something new that they've just started offering the last couple of years?
No. Allen County's, it's something new for Allen County for the misdemeanor.
Okay.
Because of the lawsuit. They had lawsuits because they were handling so many cases and they weren't properly, which is something we supervise in our office. We make sure that doesn't happen. But they now recently in the last few years, because of the lawsuit, everybody gets covered. In Noble County, they always offered benefits for the most part, but recently, I believe, I'm not sure if they offered it for the misdemeanors as well until a certain time period ago. But Steuben County, as far as I know, has always been kind of like a 50-50, or there was a few people and somehow it got up to 50. I don't know how that. I'm not sure when that.
Any other questions from the council?
No, just that, we have a public defender. We have a public defender's office. Not every county does have.
And one of the issues that I hear talked about at county council association meetings quite frequently is those people that don't have public defender offices have a money pit, because the paying a public defender all runs through their courts, and the judges have control over who and what and how often and how much they get paid. And so they're just constantly coming back to the council for more money, more money, more money. Here we have some control, we have some budgeting parameters, and I don't think that Mark has ever come back to us with any exorbitant request. I mean, he's always tried to be very frugal with what he's been given and works very well with us. So I would like to see us continue with working with that type of a department, with that type of an arrangement, because I don't want to see us go back to anything less than this, what we've already got. And now that the state's giving us 40%, it's also very helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. And I just want to remember what Bill said last time we were here a couple months ago about Steuben County. He said, don't give those guys benefits because they don't want, right?
That's right.
What's that tell you?
The councilmen that don't give benefits.
Yeah, because they don't want, they.
Take all our people.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're going to be taking our people, you know, so.
Because well, after this year, I won't have my councilman to complain to me about what DeKalb County's doing, but but that's the issue.
Just
They don't want it.
because he's joined the dark side doesn't mean.
They don't want DeKalb to get benefits, and because the fact they know that some of the people in DeKalb County work up there, and they have a chance of them moving back down.
Yes. Yeah.
They really like to have, and they answer someone asked about the training or how you got good lawyers. They understand your training program and what you put it's good enough that they want to hire them.
Yep.
And then if we offer benefits, then we get them back.
Yeah, but I don't want to lose them in the first place.
Yeah, I understand that. And, and I want to make a comment that also, I don't think any of you guys on the board, we went through this whole dang thing with the sheriff department because we were doing the same thing. We were losing our deputies to other counties because we weren't paying and benefits were as good. So this is coming back to the court systems now.
Mark, thank you for a good presentation. Thank you for all the information you've given us along the way also. Thank you, everybody that brought. Sure, come on up, Ron.
Ever since the Public Defender Board was established, I've been with that board. And I've been involved with some of you folks for some now 37 years. A lot of this stuff has been rehashed, but as a board, we have been working with this problem for over 2 years there. And Mark's tried to keep you people well advised, but by being part of the commission, this expenses, you're going to get reimbursement. That's a known expense pretty much based upon caseload and that. If we lose this, now you're dealing with an unknown, and I don't think it's worth the chance of doing that. And like Bill said, the Sheriff's Department, we went through the Sheriff's Department and all the work we had to do to get that in line. We think this goes parallel with that, and we're missing a real opportunity if we don't take an act now. Mark's been very successful, and Kevin, in keeping people at bay and not jumping ship. But the time has come now that they're going to be doing that because it's a shortage. It's something that we have no control over. How do we handle what we can't control? So I think it's really serious that we take and do something with this. So I don't want to take extra time because a lot has been rehashed, but it's very important that we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you, everybody, for your input. Okay, we're moving on. Jeannie, take your full time.
No, we need Neil.
We need Neil first?
Neil first.
Okay, because that,
Oh, wait.
Jeannie at 9:45.
Oh, never mind.
For 9:45.
I forgot Jenny was in the mix.
So
Reading this backwards.
take your
are we?
time.
It's
So
side
we're
to
not-
side. I go down.
You got to go left to right, not
Yeah,
up.
We're not going
I need
to
it.
cut you off there, so.
Oh, I
You
see.
can pull it down, the microphone.
It's okay. Well, good morning, everyone. So mainly, not much has changed with my budget, with the exception of request for an increase in my deputy coroner pay, and it's actually not an increase, so much so is that I just need to correct the monies requested for this upcoming year. So last year, at the end of the year, we changed our budget from paying the deputies one time a year at the end of the year, a pittance, to $250 per on-scene case, $50 per phone consult, which also requires a lengthy case report, and then $25 per 6-hour shift on call. And at the time, we had absolutely no idea how much we would need to cover that budget. Because as you know, we have no idea when someone is going to die. So Mike, my chief deputy, and I are both salaried. And Mike and I cover the majority of call, but we do need to have people fill in because we both have full-time jobs. So I'm going to give you one example. In a 2-week time frame, I covered 172 hours of on-call time, which is over 7 full days. And I work a full-time job, and Mike covered a considerable amount of time that pay period as well. And then poor Tyler picked up the weekend to take call, and he had 4 coroner cases. So we have to pay them appropriately. So we're paying him for his on-call time plus the cases. So that one particular pay period, I paid Tyler alone almost $1,200. So our budget for this year for deputy coroner pay is $19,140. I've already expended $12,414 of that, leaving me with a little bit under $7,000. Now, will I use all of that? I don't know. I don't know how the cases will fall. I really have no idea. Mike and I will continue to take the majority of call. We've had the majority of cases, but I still need to be able to pay these deputies for that. So I do want to also explain to you what you need to go through to become a medical legal death investigator and show you how important it is that we retain the staff that we have. So if someone comes to me and says they're interested in becoming a deputy coroner, they go through a class. So it's a 40-hour class. They then sit for a board certification. So they have to pass the entirety of that test. And then for the following year, they complete an externship. So they need to go on as many calls as possible, complete death cases on every single cause and manner, or every single manner of death. And at the end of that year, then they have to go down to the Northeast Forensic Center and complete a draw, an autopsy, and then a fluids draw with the pathologist. And at that time, then the pathologist will either sign off or not sign off on that day autopsy. Then all of their case reports, everything they've done in that last year will then be forwarded on to the board, and they will decipher whether or not that person can become certified. So it's taking us over a year to get someone through this training, and even after a year, they may not feel confident to be on their own for some cases. For example, we've had a couple of homicides this year. The second homicide was one of my newest deputies, and he called me. I was at work, and he said, I don't feel comfortable handling this myself. I said, I'll figure it out, and I met him there at the scene, and we were there for hours. So I feel like this is a fair request. I'd like to increase the budget to $28,000. I don't know that we will use anywhere near that, but I'd prefer not to have to come back in and ask for more money if I don't have to.
The training and the training that the coroners and the deputies go through now is just, it was never like that before, and this is all trying to professionalize what is happening in each county, because there were issues with incompetent people doing these death investigations that would cause an issue all through the system. So, Jenny and Mike, the two of them have just done a wonderful job in
well, thank you for saying that. We're trying so hard.
Improving that department. I know you are. And having been on that side of the podium before, I know how difficult it is, and it is time consuming.
It is. And thus far this year, we've handled obviously a multitude of natural deaths, but we have handled 6 suicides, 7 drug overdoses, 2 motor vehicle fatalities, and 2 homicides. And so if you see something on the news where someone has died here in DeKalb County, we've been there. And we go no matter what time of day, what the weather's like. If we're in the middle of something, I was at Texas Roadhouse and waited in line for a very long time, and then they called our name and they said, and dispatch called and said, hey, you have a coroner call. And I was like, great, but that's not exactly what I said. But I do want to add, even on some of our easier case reports, this is a case report that we do. This is 5 pages long, so it's not a couple of sentences. I mean, we spend hours doing this. And I will toot our own horns when I say that the forensic pathologist who covers this entire region reached out to me and he said our department is one of his very favorites, or maybe he did say we are his favorite to work with because we are super thorough, and I have a little OCD, and I think that's spread out throughout our department. So anyway, I appreciate all that you've done for us so far. We're outfitted very well with the technology that we need. We now have a uniform budget, so when we show up to scenes, we all match. We have a pretty awesome new van that you probably saw on 21 Alive. They were there filming, and I was super proud that we looked professional. We all matched, and there's not our rusted old Tahoe that we used to have. So thank you all for that.
And weren't you just appointed to the training board for the Coroners Association?
I was just appointed. They approached me when I was at the Indiana State Coroners Association meeting. There were over 350 coroners and deputy coroners there, and they approached me and asked me to represent. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you. We are trying hard, and I have the absolute best team that anyone could ask for. Another thing that I'm working toward is a mutual aid contract. So even though I have 6 deputies, and that sounds like a lot of people, but when I did go to conference this year, one of the days, Mike stayed back. These are mandatory CEU hours that we have to have, and I had to go this year. And Mike did stay back, but he had class during the day, and I had a heck of a time getting that covered. We did 2-hour increments with other deputies that didn't go. And so what I'm working on right now is a contract so that we can say, hey, Allen County, you know, you're all trained. Would somebody like to come down here and cover a shift for us? And if so, I can pay you. And so I'm working with our county, after speaking with Susan, working with our county attorney to get this done so that we can have some coverage in case a catastrophe occurs or everybody's working or I can't leave work when they call me. So.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jeannie about anything?
Comment. I have Jenny on Facebook, and I love your posts about just getting some attention to the coroner's office and what you do, because not everyone knows. And just the wording that you use is perfect, and it gives people a sense of kindness and compassion if they ever need you, that it's comforting. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for saying that. We definitely are trying. And actually, before I came up here today, I thought, am I going to wear one of my uniform shirts and dress in all black? And I thought, no, because that's not me. And that's not what I want to be professional, and I want to bring professionality to our department. I show up on scene in my uniform, but this is me. I just want people to know we're just regular people. And if you need us, we're going to be there for you. We're not like these super morbid sickos like my husband often refers to me as. So anywho.
Poor Rick.
Poor Rick is right.
Jenny, the van, are we at completion on that as far as getting the lift?
So the van is currently at the shop, and it's having the lift installed, and it will be, they told me it will take up to 3 months to have that completed. So we're hoping to have that back within the next couple of months, and then that will be all set.
So in the interim, how are you transporting?
So I have a Shailene with Moriarty Transport System who fills in when Dave is off, because Dave is our contracted transport person. And so Shailene is doing all of our transports now. And she bills us at only a slightly higher rate than Dave bills us. She's super professional and great to work with.
All be handled during 2024, part of your 25 budget.
To the van?
Right.
We already have the money set aside for that, $25,000. So that's already ready to go. So as soon as I get the invoice for that, and we've been very clear with him that $25,000 is the cutoff. If they have any great ideas that they want to do, that's going to have to stay under that budget. So that's all been budgeted for this year. Yep. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Jeannie. Okay, prosecutor Neil Blythe.
Morning. I'll start with just complimenting Jenny and her staff. They do a fantastic job. One thing that I particularly enjoy is, one, they're easy to work with, but two, she gently reminded me that the prosecutor's office was responsible to have a child fatality review team, which we hadn't established even though it was mandated 10 years ago. So we got that going this year. We have an excellent team of all kinds of different people from the community. Had our first meeting last month, and as I tried to explain to them there, we're not looking at the criminal element there in that team. We're looking at where did the system break down for these children? How can we fix things and make this better for the community moving forward? And Jenny was very much the start of that for the county, so I want to compliment her on that. I have two items in my budget that will look fairly different from last year. Actually, one request is almost identical, but it didn't get granted last year. And to give you some background, we have 7 attorneys in my office, including myself, Skylar Casto, the chief deputy. The 2 of us are paid by the state of Indiana. Our benefits are all through the state of Indiana. We have 1 full-time position that does receive benefits through the county, and then 4 part-time attorney positions that are currently filled. I had some concerns toward the end of last year that we may be losing Skylar, who was in that full-time deputy position, just because of the pay. At that time, I believe it was $67,000 for a full-time position. That's not competitive locally or statewide. And this isn't really an issue that's unique necessarily to DeKalb County. It's a statewide problem. Just as there is a shortage of public defenders, there's definitely a shortage of prosecutors throughout the state. Some counties have it worse than others. In our county, being a smaller county, it's hit us hard this last 6 months, 7 months. We had some staff changes, and the full-time deputy prosecutor position has been open since mid-December. We've posted as many places we can think to post. I've received under probably 8 applicants. The most recent one applied, and I thought it looked pretty good. He had some good experience from Delaware County until we figured out that he has a pending felony case against him. So we're not getting the type of applicants we're looking for to build our staff. And as the court's staff judges mentioned earlier, as Mark mentioned, having good quality attorneys in those positions makes everybody's job better. As prosecutors, we're not only focused on getting convictions. The majority of time, that's what we want, but we want to see that justice is done. And so sometimes that means making sure that the defense attorneys are doing their job correctly so that we don't have appeals, post-conviction relief issues, lawsuits, those type of things. And so I don't want somebody who's going to come in and just look for convictions and just try to win at all costs. I want somebody who's a good person, who's going to do the right thing and make decisions that are the best interest for the community. And so we haven't found that person yet. So my big request at this point, the salary last year was $67,000. I requested that to go up to 83 last year. It went up to 71. That's what we've posted, again, for over 6 months, and we don't have anybody that I felt was worthy of even an interview at this point. So I'm going to renew that request this year to get us up to the 83,000. I think that's more competitive with the area. Allen County has open positions. Elkhart County has several open positions. Their starting salary is about that for somebody who doesn't have much experience. The Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council sent out approximately 2 weeks ago their legislative agenda for at least prosecutors in general and their salaries about 2 weeks ago. Their number one proposal is to have the state agree to a similar system that the public defenders use, where if the county opts in, the state would pick up 50% of the salary for the deputy prosecutor, the full-time deputy prosecutor. The county picks up the other 50%. But in order to get into that program, we have to agree that we're going to pay our deputy prosecutors full-time just under $101,000 per year. So that's what the state of Indiana, as far as IPAC is shooting for, as far as a minimum deputy prosecutor salary full-time. I understand we're not in a position to do that here right now. But if they would do that, I think it would be good for us because then it actually would save the county money, I believe. But it comes with I believe it was about a $43 million price tag to the state, statewide. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know where that's going. But again, we're at least a couple years away from that if that happens. I would concur with Mark in terms of the value that benefits holds to private attorneys, especially the part-time. That's what I started here in DeKalb County as a part-time prosecuting attorney. I had my obviously law office across the street with Mr. Weber and Mr. Mefford, but I didn't have insurance either. So it's a big expense for private attorneys who have a law office, and it's a big unknown because you don't know what your insurance premiums are going to do year to year if you're paying for just a family type plan as a single person. So I think it's a huge benefit. I'm all in favor of you guys giving that to the public defenders. Obviously, that would help our office. I think at this point, as I said, we're one prosecutor down right now. Mr. Shively, unfortunately, was in an accident in February, so we were without him for several months. So at that time, we were 2 prosecutors down, and then we were without our investigator for several months. So we've been in survival mode for most of 2024 so far. I say that because Mr. Shively is going to retire at the end of the year as well. So at that point, we're back to needing 2 prosecutors. Obviously, my fingers are crossed that we'll have the full-time position filled by then, but I'm actively looking for who's going to be that replacement for when he retires as well. And having benefits to be able to offer to that part-time position, I'm sure will make a difference. So I can answer any questions about the benefits part or the salary part if you have any in terms of what we're requesting.
Neil, in that proposal from the Prosecutor's Council, did they make any suggestion for ratio of prosecutors to cases or any kind of other stipulation?
No, I'll be fair. It was very general. I don't know if there will be anything like that. Obviously, we've never had to keep track of those numbers. We can find those numbers fairly quickly.
I used to hassle your previous prosecutor about wanting to see those numbers.
Well,
They wanted
so
more people.
I guess one thing I'll tell you that we've been able to do in the first year, I came in here last year looking for potentially hiring a victim advocate. The way we managed to do that without coming back to the council for asking for that additional position was that Claire Mary years and years ago created her own paperless filing system. It worked at the time. It was very quirky, and IT was very much involved with it on a day-to-day basis. When I took over, we migrated somewhat slowly to using PCMS full-time. That's supplied by all the prosecutors in the state of Indiana, by the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. It's basically an online case management software system, and we were already using it to some degree before I took over. We're using it fully now. So the only thing we use the county's server for on a day-to-day basis is essentially for storage of evidence, which is becoming a little bit of more of an issue because of the amount of digital evidence we receive now in terms of video. But what that did was we found that the efficiencies in using PCMS, it saved our staff a ton of time and it freed up their time for other things. And we realized that we didn't need that extra staff person to handle the day-to-day operations. And so we went to the personnel committee a while back and asked to change the job description from that legal secretary position to the victim advocate. That was approved. We were able to hire a new victim advocate. She's been working for us for 2 months. It's been tremendously helpful for our office and for victims in the county. She's a great resource. And so it's kind of full circle that we're finding the efficiencies, we're doing what we can to use what we have available to us without costing the county and the taxpayers more money. And that was a big win, I think, for everybody in having that resource available. But using PCMS, we can pull those numbers very quickly. And I can get you the reports of what prosecutors or how many cases they're handling. Just for reference, it's a little skewed because we do have 3 prosecutors, including myself, who are assigned 1 each to the treatment courts. So the amount of time you're committing to certain cases is way off compared to a normal, say, misdemeanor that you'd normally handle. So Eric Weber handles half the misdemeanor cases, but he also handles all the ATC drug court cases for Judge Squiller's court. Haley Casto handles the other half of misdemeanors and a handful of felonies, as she can take those, but she also handles the FRC Family Reconciliation Court for Judge Grimm. And then obviously I'm assigned to Veterans Treatment Court.
And in those specialty courts, we're getting grants on from a number of, I think mostly covering probation and maybe some of the court staff, but that doesn't cover any of your expenses, does it?
No.
That's what I thought.
We spend a lot of time in those courts, and it's for good use. But yeah, we're not getting paid anymore, and it really does. It's a lot of extra time for the people assigned to those courts that we don't get any extra compensation for. I can't offer any extra compensation for because we don't have it available. So.
I do want to clarify on the benefits for the attorneys. Would you be included or not included?
I would not. So Skylar Casto and I. We're technically employees of the state of Indiana. All of our salary and benefits Skylar's are based on a percentage of what I get paid. Okay. My salary is exactly what the judges get paid. That's all mandated by statute.
So like, if you get perf, any of that retirement is all state?
It's all state.
I know that Prosecutors Council has been trying to increase the number of prosecutors throughout the state for a number of years, and I think it was 2 years ago they put out a report that the state of Indiana was short 400 prosecutors. And now the majority of those were probably not needed in a DeKalb County or a Steuben County. They were probably more Allen and whatnot, but still that we were short and pay level was the number one issue.
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention, because we're comparing counties, Noble County is a little unique in that they have a DOC facility, which also means they have an extra state-paid prosecutor, and which also means that if you're going to treat the public defender's office over there equivalent to their prosecutor's office, they have more money in their prosecutor's office because of that. We don't have that. It impacts us to a degree because the percentages that the chief deputy prosecutor and in turn the chief deputy public defender get paid are slightly higher because we're next to Allen County with their population and next to a county that has a DOC facility. So instead of paying the 60%, as Mark mentioned, it's 66%. So it's a little higher. But Noble County is a little hard to compare to DeKalb and Steuben because of that DOC facility in Noble County. Right. So what I can tell you, I guess, is my best estimate, and this is just off the cuff. The way that the misdemeanor courts are being run, most of the misdemeanors are able to be handled in a Wednesday morning. And that doesn't necessarily mean that contested hearings, which would be set on a Thursday just for time for the court. But then Wednesday afternoon is entirely dedicated to treatment court and for Mr. Weber. And then similar from Haley Casto, that every other Thursday, so it's not every week in that court, every other Thursday, that afternoon is basically dedicated to being in court for the treatment court. Same way with me every other week for Veterans Court. But that's only when you're in court. That's not dealing with the reports that come in throughout the week, the violations that come in, those type of things. So I would say on average, 6 to 8 hours a week is probably something that we've absorbed from those prosecutors dedicated to the treatment courts.
This is actually for Susan or for Jody, but your chief deputy's salary is paid by the state, and then we pay $5,000 stipend to you and to him, and I think in here they've increased it to $5,300. That 300 needs to be dialed back to the 5,000.
I think I asked for 5,000 last year, and you guys gave me 53 for the chief deputy.
300 for 20.
Well, I think by law, it's a $5,000 stipend. Yeah, it's the same as the
Because
judge,
we-
the judges and the prosecutor all get that same amount. I didn't realize that the chief deputy got it, but that's,
Any other question or comments for Neil?
One other topic I want to hit, because you'll see it's a big difference. I asked for money for computer equipment this year. I kind of
For
hint-
what?
Computer equipment. There's been no computer equipment in the general fund budget for the prosecutor's office for a long, long time. I think there must have been some agreement at some point with Clara way back that she would pay for all the computer equipment out of the pretrial diversion money. I was approached, I believe, late last year, and I think this was in my letter last year, that we have a tremendous number of computers in our office that need to be upgraded by next year. So I've asked for $10,000 this year for that. I also increased the amount in the pretrial diversion budget for some additional computer equipment. We're working with IT, obviously, to find the best deals and put it on a schedule where we can implement that. But as we move away from paper, anything really in our office, we rely heavily on computers. We actually, because of download speeds and the way we're dealing with video evidence, have a couple of computers who just are unassigned that work to pull videos for us constantly, because we have to wait so long in its downtime if we have to wait on that computer. So we really need to, I guess, keep up to speed with getting the best equipment we have, just to save time and efficiency, because all of our work now is computer-based instead of paper-based. And with more and more videos in every case, you can imagine how many officers respond to a major crime scene. Everyone has body cam, most have dash cam, and we have to keep track of all that evidence, catalog it. We're working with IT. We've come up with what I believe is a better solution in having the police officers send us the cases, because it's all digital. Before, they would put it in the county shared portal, which was a server maintained by the county. So it would be saved on the whatever police department server. We'd save it on our server. It just took a lot more time. We've come up with a new system that we're piloting right now with Auburn, where they just send us a case number. We go into Spillman directly and pull it over. It saves a lot of time for everybody. We're trying to do that for videos, and we're working with IT. It's been a couple of months. They're working on a solution, a cloud-based solution to store the videos for us. It also helps on the backside with discovery, saving our staff time as well, and having to copy all that. But we're not quite there yet. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have all that dialed in. But again, we're really relying on having very good computer equipment, and it saves a ton of time for everybody if we can do it that way, including all the police officers throughout the county that we work with.
Anything else for Neil? Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Mr. Lanning. So take your full time. Don't feel you have to speed up for whatever.
Okay.
'Cause we're
Not 1
running.
minute. It's fine. Morning. We made some adjustments to the budget. A couple of them look like a large percentage jump, but they're a relatively small dollar amount increase. Some things have been decreased quite a bit, down to little or nothing in some of the accounts. So we had to get some of those back up. It's been about a year since Glenn took over as a surveyor, and I came in to help him run things. So we've been getting adjusted to what we felt we need to have. So first thing, most of the things we increased at that standard 4% that was asked for. We asked our overtime to be increased by 15%, which is really just a $400 increase. It would take us to a $3,000 for the overtime amount, which ultimately isn't that much when you're looking at paying a time and a half for that overtime. We don't hope to use it, but sometimes we get stuck in the field with some projects that we have to stay out there making sure things are taken care of and inspected. So, our next one was probably our biggest dollar increase. That was for the funding for the surveyor's income. There's not very many LSs in the county as is, and Glenn is not an LS. So the proposed income amount was $82,285. That's for a licensed surveyor, and by state code, it has to be a time and a half above a non-license. So this current year, if you were licensed, it'd be $64,698. Glenn's actual income is $43,132. So we're asking to increase that to $54,857.20. That doesn't necessarily come from Glenn. It's not the kind of guy he is to want that income, but talking with our liaison, Bill, and he probably deserves more than that. He runs his own business outside of being the surveyor. So realistically, his time spent in the office, he loses money more than he does make any money. So if we can try to make that a little bit better, I think we'll all benefit from it. Not to mention in the future to create hopefully some competition for that position. Competition's healthy. Glenn's running unopposed this year, and that may be a lot of the leading factor for that. It's just it's a pretty high qualifications for that position for not so much funding for it. So to help make that a little bit more worthwhile for Glenn to keep spending time in the office and getting things taken care of.
Can I get you to kind of just back up a little bit? You
Yep.
kind of lost me a little bit
Sure.
here on this here. So you're requesting a salary for 82,000.
Yep.
But you're not paying the 82,000.
Correct.
So
That's
they include what the highest amount would be in case we
You
would
know.
have a licensed surveyor.
Mhm.
But then as we go through this, then we will take it back down to the 54,858 or whatever you guys decide in the final numbers. But we always have them include the highest because there may be some time that we do have a licensed one and we need to keep that.
And the
in mind.
majority of the majority of the surveyors in the state of Indiana are not licensed surveyors the way I understand it.
It's a pretty small pool of licensed surveyors. I'm not sure how many there are in DeKalb County, but not very many. And I definitely don't think they're going to come do the job for 64,000. I think that's it's quite a bit of time commitment to become an LS. I think you have to work 8 years under a licensed surveyor. So that's on top of getting your degree before that. Then work 8 years under an LS before you actually can obtain a licensed surveyor. So
Thank you. Thanks, Susan.
a lot of time for it to do that. So what we'd be looking at, what we'd actually be paying the surveyor, Glenn, would be the $54,857. Around a $11,000 increase from what it is, but still, I think that's a bargain for the knowledge that he brings. Questions about the income there? That's probably one of the bigger ones.
A lot of positive comments about the surveyor's office here in the last year and catching up on some of the projects that have been delayed, and you guys have done a great job. And you're the one that's there every day, right?
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, we're working hard to get everything going in the right direction. So,
That was that's one of the reasons that I told him to look for a little more money, because you ain't believe how many of the farmers have called me and said, you gotta keep this after the last 7 or 8 years with the other survey, because we are getting things done. And that's right.
I hear comments on it every week about it.
And Tyler and me talks quite a bit, probably more than what he wants to.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Don't we all? Is that what you said, Amy? Don't we all?
The other items, the operating part, not the wages, those had been taken way down with the prior surveyor for many years. So it's not surprising that they need to increase those.
Yeah, like supplies and postage and different things. If you're producing a lot more, you're going to go through a lot more of that stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the larger percentage-wise that we increased. So we increased our operating supplies for markers and flags, paint, those types of items have gotten more expensive, and we were already pretty low on that. So just to make sure we're able to afford all of those items. We also increased our tire budget. It was at $0, which is pretty, that's tough to work with. So, yep. So last year we moved it to 1,000, we upped it $1,000. We're moving it up $1,000 again. We have 3 trucks, we have a UTV and 3 trailers. So the quick math, it's a lot of tires, and $2,000 isn't going to come close to touching that. We're getting there to where we need to replace some of the tires on some of our pickups. We get stuck on wet grass, and that's tough when you're going out in the fields and have to inspect drainage systems. So that's why it's a 100% increase there. It looks large, but yeah, I would say it's well needed. Postage, again, increase 100% up to $2,000. Postage increase in cost, as well as doing more jobs, sending out more notices. Try to stay on top of that. We're already running into issues with not having enough money in our postage account for some things that need to be done that haven't been done for a long time. And so we're trying to find some ways around that. But I don't really know the best way to do that, which I think ultimately is going to be a discussion to have again with Susan and the council of we're looking at Cedar Creek needs an increase, and that's going to be, I think it was around like $11,000 in postage just for notices for increasing that, just because the Cedar Creek watershed is so substantially large. So,
Well, this is another example of why we let go so long, and the rates per acre, per lot, and everything needs to go up so we can keep our creeks at least running.
We're operating in the red right now in Cedar Creek, just because it needs more funding in the account. In order to get more funding in the account, we have to have a really large public hearing to increase that, and it's going to cost us $11,000 of postage. And how do we get that money to get put on the postage machine? It just really becomes a hassle, and I think that's where it stopped before. So we're going to try and keep that moving along, get it taken care of. We upped our furniture budget from $0 to $1,000. We're working with some pretty old chairs that came out of the basement here of the courthouse that got moved over to the new building when we were moved over there. So they have some wear and tear, and they're breaking down. So some new chairs would be nice. But we increased our equipment for hopefully we'd like to purchase a saw for removal of small trees that we can handle in office to try to save some money for some of those drain accounts, and then also for a drone for surveying open drains. A little bit easier to examine what's going on. We get flooded areas rather than having to go out in waders and check to see if there's a beaver dam or what's going on. We can look in that from up above. So,
as a side note for council, if you're looking at these pages, we included their notes if they use the note field in our system. So, like, you don't have to remember he's got 3 pickups, 3 trailers, and a side-by-side, because right under that account it has his note.
Again, I'd like to thank, and I know you guys already did, but thank you and Jody for, this is much nicer, much easier to follow along this way.
We were trying to figure out how to actually use our software system to benefit us.
Oh, that's good. It's working. Man, why telling secrets again, Art?
Yeah, I think it's because of our leadership, Vice President.
Is that what it is?
It's done a good job.
Tyler, do you have anything else you'd like to present?
Well, that's everything for our general account. We have the corner perpetuation account. How does that funding get handled? That's something I had questions about. Is that budget or allowed money decided here from council, or is that a?
So the council will approve, like you've requested a total of $175,000 for that fund. The council will approve X amount of dollars or that amount to be spent in that year. Then it's whether, if the fund has the money to back that amount, then you can spend that amount. As for the determination of which corner, whatever work you do, I don't think that has anything to do with the council, but we still budget and appropriate like a general fund so that the approval to spend is there and your claims can go through without issues.
So, how do we handle like getting more money into that account? Like, I think we'll have enough to cover this 175,000 if I remember right. I think we're sitting like 235, maybe.
Can tell you.
I don't know. I might be way off, but
Where does the money come from? This isn't a tax.
Yeah, we're
rate,
at
so-
205.
205.
Mayor's office have some kind
Well, I know we have an ordinance that we did that I believe had a fee in it.
So something has to happen or take place in order to charge the fee to put money in there.
And
So-
it's something that, isn't it something that's collected in the recorder's office? Well, that's what we're talking about. It's the surveyor corner perpetuation. So so monthly deposits get put in depending on what Lita, yes. So far, for 6 months, it's been 15,000.
What happens that you make that charge, Lita? Just a,
Every document that gets recorded, we take like a percentage of that or something? Or?
why is it coming in? That's what I'm trying to think. What are you recording a deed or recording a document?
Any
or?
documents, that's where our fees are coming from.
Okay,
these
so
documents.
that's what's taking place that
Recording
generates
fees.
the fee. That's,
Recording fees,
okay.
copy fees, yes.
Tell her to record more things.
Yeah, get recording.
So the state's,
I'd like to keep it.
does the state set that percentage then? Okay.
The status of our Cornerstone perpetuation program is really poor. So we have 871 Cornerstone markers that are good to use for surveyors. Monument's been located and everything's fine. We have 179 yellow Cornerstone markers, which means the monument's been found, but it hasn't been aligned correctly. Some of these were updated 20, 30 years ago, so it could be lost by now. It depends if the farmer tilled it over and broke it or what happened. Then we have 762 red. So we had 871 green and then 762 red, which means we don't know where the monument it is or any alignment of it. So it's of no use to surveyors. And we have 19 unknown corners that we just have no idea where they're at. So that's, outside of drainage, that's what our office is in charge of. It hasn't really been kept up to date very well. When Mike was a surveyor, he was an LS, so he could do that on his own. But Glenn and myself, we're not licensed to handle Cornerstone markers, so we can't actually place those and record them ourselves. That has to be hired out to an LS. So we're starting a program with DA Brown. We're working on a contract agreement for them to handle all the Cornerstone perpetuation. They'll sub out to other engineering firms, and they'll start with a program of re-identifying those different markers, doing the yellow ones and then the red ones. Township, they're gonna put together a comprehensive plan. They're working with Foresight Engineering, who handled Allen County's Cornerstone program. So it's something that's needed, but it's going to need some funding, much more than what we have. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty slow go. So, like the 175,000, we'll go through pretty quick. For a yellow corner, we're probably looking at like 2,000 a corner, maybe, for them to go out, verify, reset, and do all the GIS work for the programming. And then for red corners, we're probably looking more towards $4 or $5 grand a corner to do that. So you can see how that would go pretty fast. When we have 762 to find and if we only have $150,000 to spend on those contract services, 5,000 each one, that's 30 corners, which, then we'd be at 732 corners that we have to find. So
How long, I mean,
still a lot.
they're gonna take several years?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a long plan, but that's, again, why the funding, so we can get some sort of a plan. I think Allen County started with like 1.5 million on their project. And they went, I think they spent 1.2-ish, if I remember the numbers from Foresight, around like 1.2 in their first year of finding the corner. So it's pretty substantial. So, I mean, anything's better than nothing that we're going to get started with. I think what the plan is to start in some of those townships that have hardly any green corners, get some established so then the surveyors have something to work off of. Because on a lot of those, they are going long distances to find a good starting point. So that's the reason those are increasing really substantial there. So it was an increase of 95,000. But even that is just barely getting a start on what we need. So.
Anything else, Tyler?
I don't think so.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for him? Thank you. Very informative presentation.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Tyler.
Okay, break time. Let's come back at 11 o'clock if that's agreeable with everybody. Health Department. Oh, I'm sorry, no, sorry, Nellie.
Nellie.
I apologize. I know it, so, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for meeting with us today. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce one of my board supervisors. This is Jeff Conrad, if you haven't met him. He's been a dedicated supervisor with Soil and Water for many years. I think it's close to 20, right? Yeah. So thank you for all you've done for us.
Thank you.
And hopefully you've all received the letter that I emailed out that went over what we do along with our budget request and the leveraging sheet. Was it? Okay, awesome. And just a reminder kind of what we do. DeKalb Soil and Water serves as the local hub for connecting land users to direct sources of educational, financial, and technical assistance for applying conservation practices and best management technologies on the land to address soil and water concerns. And our total 2025 budget request is $261,508. And this amount consists of personnel services, including salaries, board member per diems and overtime, telecommunications, and our operating expenses. And because of our partnership with the USDA NRCS, our office rent and utilities are still covered at this point. And district operations are funded primarily through county and state appropriations. And we also pursue public and private grants for education and the installation of conservation practices that improve soil and reduce the amount of excess nutrients entering our valuable water bodies. In 2023, we received a community foundation grant for $4,040 that allowed us to make improvements at Hague Nature Area. We also received a Clean Water Indiana grant for $100,000 that will go towards the Cedar Creek Stream Stabilization Project. And then in 2024, we were able to bring in several funding sources, including a $100,000 LAIR grant and $87,000 MRBC contribution to assist with the Stream Lake Stabilization Project, which significantly reduced the amount that the city and the county contribute to that project, which lowered it to about less than $5,000 for each. We also received a NIPSO grant this past spring for $5,000 to assist with invasive species education and eradication. Our dedicated team has consistently gone above and beyond to ensure every project and initiative is executed with precision and efficiency. And we've been very busy implementing conservation practices and reaching out to the community throughout the year with a variety of programming and workshops. We've had very successful rain barrel workshops, our agronomy field day. We reach out to the youth for youth education, and we've been successful these past 3 years with our tree and native plant sale. And then we also have our district cost share program, which offers financial assistance for a variety of conservation practices, including composting barrels, home garden soil testing, invasive tree removal and replacement, rain barrels, rain gardens, septic system replacement, and well capping. And already this year, we have several applications that will fund approximately $13,000 towards conservation practices. That goes right back to the county residents. And then, as you've seen in your packet, the leveraging worksheet you received, for every dollar the county invests in the district, we achieve a return of $10.67. And this amount is from 2023 and demonstrates the significant impact our work has on conserving natural resources and benefiting the community. So on behalf of DeKalb SWC staff and board supervisors, we appreciate your continued support that will enable us to expand our outreach and get more conservation on the ground. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about our budget.
The well capping workshop, is that for old wells to?
Yes.
I don't know what language I want to use.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
If you leave a well that's not in use, it acts as a direct conduit for contamination to get into our groundwater. So the more that we can get people to properly remove those, it helps protect.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that what this here?
So at the top of it, so soil and water, they are. Has submitted. So at some point. To WIS for a determination also. I did highlight 2 other department heads, Weights and Measures and Sunny Meadows, that are also not in the executive category. However, Weights and Measures, they are considered more of a part-time elected official. And also, they don't oversee other, it's just a one-person department. And then Sunny Meadows, they are actually in the special occupations category, and that's included in your packet too. But we have to remember that her housing is figured in as part of her wage also. So the Weights and Measures in Sunny Meadows doesn't surprise me that they're not in the EXC because they're a little bit different. But the soil and water and the VA officer are 2 that need to be reviewed.
I actually met with the job classification committee earlier this year with Dottie. And
Yeah,
the
it just
recommendation
hasn't went
Yeah, the
to
recommendation was to come to full council. And I thought that was going to happen, but it didn't. So I don't know.
Will that need to be done by the August meeting?
Well,
At our last meeting, because it wasn't on
it was discussed 2 meetings ago. It was brought up at a regular council meeting, but the decision was going to be made during budget time. So once you decide how you're going to handle it, whether you're going to agree and just put them in that classification, the EXEA, then you'll have to determine whether you're going backwards and going to allow that wage for 2024, or if you're just switching in 2025 going forward, or if you're not switching at all, or if you want it to go to WIS.
If it goes to 24, will there be any retro money necessary for that then?
Yeah, if it's approved, and if you guys approve it to go retro to beginning of 24, then we'll have to do an additional appropriation for both of those departments.
Does it have to go?
It does not have.
We can make it effective at a certain date.
Correct. It does not have to that, but if it does, if that's a decision, then yes, we will have to have an additional appropriation to be able to pay for it.
So we'll need to make a decision by the August meeting then?
You'll need to make a
During the August
decision.
meeting, or?
You need to at least, you need to decide concrete before the end of the year when we have the salary ordinance that we're doing. I will have to go in and remember to put in the increased wage for what the EXEA category will be for 25, so that we have the money there in case you decide to go ahead and bump it up to that category. So that otherwise, the sooner you determine and decide is the better for everybody, because then we know what to put in the budget and we know what to put on the salary ordinance. And
Does this need to be advertised at a meeting, 04 meeting, to do this or not?
to actually make the change?
Yes.
No, because it will be, if you approve, like just right now, if you approve that you want those 2 department heads to be in EXEA, then all of that formally gets approved. You can do a motion if you want, because we're in a meeting, or it formally gets approved when you're approving the 2025 budget with the salary ordinance. That will have all the information on there.
But you can advertise high, and if we cut it back. we're
I
okay.
can,
You can advertise for the, whatever that amount is, that 70, what is it? 76, is that right? But if
well,
we,
that's what she has requested.
yeah, but you can advertise that, but we can move that back to a 4% increase if we don't, if they don't approve of a bump up.
Correct. So, but if you're wanting information, if you're gonna decide yourselves, then that's not as big of a deal. But if you're wanting paperwork and information to be put together with Dottie and sent on to WIS, then that's another cost and time.
Okay, my issue is, we have 3 members on the wage deal, but Dottie, we ought to talk to her and see if she thinks we should move it on, or we can take it on.
They've already been to the committee, and the committee's recommendation was to bring it to full council.
Okay. Well, I'll just, I just think we should leave it go. Let's look at it, and we'll make a vote on next month. Advertise for the full amount, and we'll make a vote on next meeting then.
For both of them, because
Yeah, yeah, for both of them.
the VA one probably isn't increased to that. These are just the last 2 of the department heads.
Has the VA gone to the ways, though?
No.
And I think with me, when I first started, there wasn't a department head for soil and water. So that's where it stems from.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that.
Right.
That's why the committee, now you just reminded me.
Yeah.
The committee decided that should be a department head, should be in this category, because it wasn't, the board was, in soil and water, the board was the director. Yeah. And they had a staff person to work for it. Now it's restructured, and there is a department head and director.
Yes. All 4, including me, but yeah.
So we voted that to the council. Our recommendation was for that to be.
Let me see that.
And that should be a simple enough change.
I think we talked about it and then said, we don't need to send that to this, we just felt like, yeah, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
To do that.
So then you also need to make that determination on VA, because that's another department head that's not classified as a department head. Correct. I think right now she has 1.
Is this something the council is prepared to do today, feel comfortable with doing today? We want to come back in
It has
August?
to happen in a regular council meeting tomorrow.
This is a regular council meeting. I mean, it's an advertised, approved meeting, just not your normal, regular monthly, but it's a legit meeting.
So are you for a motion to move?
Just soil and water and VA.
Soil, water, and
Executive EXEA.
Repeat that, please.
Executive EXEA, and that's on your front sheet. The first 4 directors or department heads are A's, and the last 3 are B's. And soil and water and the VA officer, they're both currently in Pat B.
The VSO officers, discuss that differently. It is a little bit of a different office.
I was just showing where they were in this.
Currently Pat B, right? That's what you said.
Yes.
Let's put a note that we discussed this after we talk to the PA, so we can talk to both of them before we vote, before we talk to.
It's fine. You don't have to do the decision today. You just need to know that you have to make a decision on this at some point.
Well, I know what I'm gonna do, but I wanna make sure we got all the information. I don't want, since I'm a raise on, I'm gonna jump right in, give her a raise. I kinda,
As long, you guys can make the decision whenever. I will just go in and change everything and make sure I have enough advertised. I mean, I can't tell you guys when you can and cannot do something, but I have to be able to plan to give you good numbers.
I thought the mayor could tell us anything.
That would be the other thing, is move them, what dollar amount.
Okay, anything else?
Soil and water, on the second page under Pat B, it also says it's not exempt. So would that take it to exempt?
Yeah, I would think so.
And EXE? I mean, that's what I thought, okay.
Just so you guys know.
Okay, going back to where Bill's at. Bill, do you want to wait until we hear from the VA or?
Yeah, let's see what that, we have, and make comments on that. Then we can either address it tomorrow in our regular council meeting or at the end of the day tomorrow.
Well, she's coming in at 3:30 today, Rhonda is. So we can listen to her at 3:30 and maybe even go from there then.
Okay.
So,
If you need me to come back tomorrow, just let me get a hold of me.
Committee did not discuss the VA. Did, however, discuss amongst the full council to decide.
And the VA was brought into it because Dottie let everybody know that that was the other department head that was still wonky in the categories.
You calling this one a wonky too?
Yeah, I guess she's still wonky right now.
okay, going back to this, though, are we going to be able to do the VA even though that was not discussed with HR in the committee?
I mean, full council has authority over that.
I understand.
I think we would be comfortable just discussing it.
For both of them, or one of them.
One or either.
All right, let's
I mean,
wait.
the council has the authority to
Understand.
set any wage, whether it goes somewhere or not.
Let's wait until we hear from Rhonda at 3:30 and we'll go from there then.
Any other questions for me on budget request?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Nellie? So
That's okay.
thank you. Very nice presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate all your information too.
Yep. And did you get some mints, everybody?
Oh, did you bring those?
Yeah.
Oh, so, no.
No, you guys can keep them. You have a long day.
Anybody else need this? There's a lid.
You don't need to pass them this way.
Okay, moving on. Cheryl Lynch in the Health Department.
Hello? Susan, do you tell me which budget to start with, or how do I do this?
You just hit on your highlights that you want to tell them.
Okay.
They have all of your funds in front of them. County General's always on top, but
Okay.
fund number order is how everything is presented to them.
We have our 1159 on top.
Okay. All right, let's start there. I wanted to start off by telling you that last year, for this year, I had planned to have only large purchases made from the 1206, the tobacco fund, and the 1168, the local health maintenance fund. I was planning on doing that until they were spent down. And the state kind of stepped in and told everybody at the last minute that they wanted us to spend them down. So we made all these changes at the beginning of the year. But I spoke to them and they said that really it was between me and Susan, because some auditors, it would create more work. But I talked to Susan and she said she was fine with it. So I'm going back and moving money all over so that the 1206 and the 1168 will be used for like vehicle purchases and vaccine units, larger items. The rest has been just, the rest of the expenses I've distributed into the 1161 and the 1159. So I just wanted you to know that. The other thing is I've made an effort to have only one fund used to pay for similar items as much as possible. Right now, we have things where we pay for the same items in a couple different places, and it just creates errors. So what I've done is tried to, as much as possible, have us paying from one fund for like items. So you'll notice changes there. And as we start off for the 1159 in the salaries, I wanted to mention to you that I increased all of the salaries by 4%, but when you look at the side, I was surprised and did some checking. What it is actually looking at is the requested budget of 2024 against the requested of 2025. When I am not, the adopted budgets are typically more, and then we had wage increases for a bunch of the department. So when I figured the 4% increase, I took what everybody was making now and increased it by 4%. So the percentage line is going to look out of control, but they have been increased by 4% according to what they're making currently. I'm sorry?
So the column that says adopted budget 2024 did not take into account any additionals that we gave in those areas? Doesn't that usually change the adopted budget if we do an additional?
No, it's a different column.
Okay.
I think the biggest factor was that it did make a little difference because of the requested amounts being the percentage, but also the wage increases that our department had is not going to be reflected in that. Or it is reflected in that in a negative way. But each of them received a 4% increase, except for Kathy. Kathy has a larger increase, and that was due to a conversation with Bill. And I'll let him, he mentioned putting that in there and the council making a decision on her.
This, if you all remember, this is the issue that came in front of us last year. And so I told her, just put it in, we'd look at it, and we will correct it to what we thought it should be, but we would look at it and everything. So.
I think we talked about it in a council meeting with her present, that we were going to look at it, so.
Well, we're gonna look at it. I told her, put this in. It's our job to make it correct. Whether we agree with it or not, we'll go from there.
And hers was increased actually 10%. Going down and through Susan gave the totals for the perf insurance and Social Security. The operating supplies, we were cutting it too close. We spent over $3,100 in 2023, so I upped the dollar amount for 2025. In regards to the incentives, I've raised that. It will continue to be for TB patients, vaccine clinics, our lipid and A1C testing program, and then we have new testing programs. We have lead and HIV that we're currently doing. And these are just to encourage attendance or compliance with treatments.
Hey, back to your wages. Why is there an error on Alyssa's salary? It says here.
Well, when I requested the budget for 2024, we were shopping with someone. So I picked the wage that was the top, which was Deb and Teresa. I put that in there just in case, but then we started her off at a wage that was less.
Okay.
So I gave her a 4% increase, but it still looked like it was a huge negative.
Right.
Does that understand? I know it's confusing, sorry. The medical supplies, we put in HFI. The environmental health care supplies, we put in HFI. The meeting supplies, we have more programs. These meetings I've increased, so the dollar amount went up. Manuals went to HFI. Environmental. Is the Health First Indiana funding? Yes, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Postage, I had to increase that. We've already put a transfer in this year. We just did not have enough money. Let's see, the next one. Liability insurance, that was a total from Susan. The official bond went up because our vital records registrars need a bond for their notary renewals that are coming up. So I increased that fund. Equipment rental went to HFI. The lease went to HFI. Training and education and travel, I'm putting all into this fund. So we won't be paying from different sources anymore. Contract staff went to HFI. The furniture and fixtures I increased because we have more staff and consequently there's more needs. Okay, and the differences in the budget percentage again is due to the salaries for the most part.
Correct.
Any questions on that one? The next one I would like to look at is the 1161. This is the HFI funding, Health First Indiana funding. And in here, you're going to notice that there are lots of increases showing up. That funding increased significantly. So the partners were almost doubling their dollar amount. And we're taking applications now. We will be working with them to increase their programs or make new or increase so that they have a bigger reach to justify more money in 2025. So when you go through, the perf and insurance are figured by Susan, and that's for the school liaison who is paid from this fund. The operating expenses, as I mentioned, we moved a bunch of things into this funding. So the expenses have gone up and I increased the dollar amount. The incentives, We've increased programs in the HFI funding, and the needs are going to increase. We're also looking at using the incentives not only for schools, but like fair and community events. Again, to try to encourage people to use programs that we are funding. The environmental health care supplies, some of these expenses came from 1159. A lot of it is new programs. We wanted to provide mosquito dunks through the HFI funding. We also wanted to work with Sunny Meadows, try to give them educational information on like remediation for bed bugs, giving them supplies related to that. And then, like I said, the other part of that is the 1159 that was moved over. The meeting supplies is up. That is because we are increasing the planning of programs in this grant. We're also looking at trainings as far as how to have them report their data to us. Also just touch base with them on a regular basis and make sure that they are understanding their funding and their requirements. The car seat or the supplies, that has been increased. That is a brand new program. Alyssa took a training on car seat safety, and she is certified to be able to have people bring their car seats in, and she will spend time with them, educate them on their car seat, make sure that it's up to code, and if not, we will give them a car seat. The educational materials or the environmental, the manuals are educational materials for all of our programs. I put them all into one fund. The service fees, this is related to software for our environmentalists. They've been running with paper all these years. We want to get them into a digital system where they can be entering their work. This software, we were originally looking at upwards of over $100,000. When I did the budget, we were at 40. Since then, we've found a company that has a program. They have great reviews. The environmentalists were thrilled with it, and it starts off at $12,000 the first year, and it's $7,000 to $8,000 thereafter. And it is actually really geared towards the mapping, all things environmental. So that dollar amount we probably will not be using, but nothing is final yet. Then we get into the partners. Like I said, you're going to see large increases in the percentage because we all doubled most of the partners. And that is due to the work that we see they're doing now and our hopes for them to increase as they get into 2025. So that takes you all the way down to the mental health fund. I probably mentioned this before, but I'm not positive with you guys. The mental health fund is for school-aged children in the county. These children get referred for services for mental health, and if they have Medicaid, their services are free. If they have a deductible or a copay that needs to be met, we will pay with this fund to make sure that all the children can have free services for mental health. The environmental health care was moved to a different account. The advertising is new for us this year. We want to get the word out about all the new programs we have and the old ones, and changes that are being made, services that are available to them. So we're going to make a great effort to try to get information out to the community so that services are being used. The equipment repair and maintenance and the equipment rental were moved to another fund, or moved to this fund, I'm sorry. The Tech machines is the recalibration of our machines for A1Cs and lipid testing. The backhoe is part of a program that Kathy does with her installers. The subscription, that is for a marketing tool that can be used for social media, any type of advertisement. That's new to us. The lease is for clinics and such that we would have off-site. The soil scientist is also part of the program that Kathy usually does. It was paid out of the 1168 before and moved into this account. The contract staff was actually moved from another account in this funding. We just gave her a different account to be paid from. The other maintenance contracts, this is a fund that Susan made for us. This is money for future partners, people that we are hoping to bring in the application process that we just started. The capital outlay, I put in there for generators being replaced, but this is actually going to be for any big purchases. This is like a savings account that I'm starting to make so that when we spend out of those 2 grants and deplete them, we will have something started in this fund to be able to take over those expenses. And the equipment is just an account for equipment. It again, they're kind of like a repeat of each other, but the capital outlays is more for the long term. The equipment would be for a vaccine unit that goes out this year and is in need of replacement, something of that sort. If, or any equipment, I'm sorry, it'd be any equipment in the health department. Any questions on that? Mm-hmm. Yes, these are the old ones. Mm-hmm. Much. Yes, it did. It went up to, was it 800 and some? Let me look. It went from I think it was the 415,484 in 2024 to the 843,667 in 25. So yes, it was a significant increase. Yes. Yes.
That was planned in the way the bill was done. It was always to increase the second year.
And it should kind of level off. I think
level off now, and now all 92 counties are in, where previously 6 counties chose not. Money didn't go up quite as much as they thought it would because of the extra counties getting in.
Yes. Yes.
Because and that being all state money that's coming in there, and we did have our scorecard for the health of DeKalb, and I know that there were some changes made because of a new way of acquiring some of the data. There were some that went up, some that went down, but
yes.
How often do they plan to update those scorecards? Is it every 6 months, every year?
Yes, every 6 months.
6
they
months?
just did it in June. I sent you all an email that has the scorecard from 2023 and 2024, and also information on spending for 2025. Those are updated every 6 months. Our partners reported to us the 1st of June, and then we had until, I think, the 3rd week of June to put that into a state database so that it would show up. It's my understanding that when Melissa moved the information into that state spot, they don't have areas. They are very limited on the amount of reporting that can be done. So Alyssa had to go through and put all our people together and stick them in there, all grouped together. But the green sheets that I sent you in an email last night, I believe, has each individual partner, and you can go through their sheets and it will tell you what programs they're doing and what their reach is, how many people they've done, or how many people they touched, or how many classes they did. So you'll see more specific partner information on the green sheets that I sent you. If you look at the state scoreboard, everybody's piled together. All our partners are piled together in the community. And you can't quote me on that, but that was my understanding as far as what was going to happen with that. So, any other questions?
I have one. So let's see, where is it at? I'm looking at the 5-year capital needs. So in 2025, it looks like vaccine refrigerator. And maybe this is a Susan question. Does this fall under the Fund 1161 where that has the equipment?
No. Susan had asked about that. That is we have money in one of those funds. It's the 1206, the tobacco. So that will be covered by that. But currently, where is that? Currently, we have a serviceman that just looked at it. He thinks we're doing pretty good. So we're going to try to write it out for a longer period of time.
Okay.
But these big expenses will be paid from those 2 grants until they're expended.
Okay.
And then we'll use that capital outlay in the Health First Indiana funding. So hopefully we'll always be well covered for those items.
Okay. So what falls underneath that next one, Cheryl, that says equipment? It's the capital outlay and that has generators, and then the next line item is equipment.
The capital outlay was more
machinery.
of like capital outlay. I asked Susan about that for like long range plans.
Okay.
For things that come up.
Okay.
The equipment, I put money in there just in case we have something that comes up and we want to go ahead and purchase it or need to purchase it. We can use that equipment money.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The next one is the 1168, which is the local health maintenance fund. And that we moved all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items at the top, we moved out to the 1159 and the 1161. And I'm just keeping it funded for the equipment and the purchase of vehicles. And I'm going to do the same thing as you move to the 1206. We moved out the 3 line items listed at the top. And again, I just put money in for equipment and purchase of vehicles. The next grant is the 8113, which is our public health bioterror. This grant, I don't know the exact dollar amount, but it's been $25,000 for a couple years now. This is just to pay the preparedness contractor that we have taking over a lot of the preparedness responsibilities, like keeping our plans up. And eventually, he will be the one that takes over the lead, like in our drive-through, things of that sort. All that money will go to him, the contractor. The 8952, the lead level grant, this grant is only paid to us as we get patients with high lead levels that agree to us going into their home to look and see, find areas where there's lead, help them remediate, know where they need to go to get things done. So we don't know if we'll get all this. It just depends on who agrees, how many patients we have and who agrees to us going into their home. But I planned for the best case scenario. That is the dollar amount that is eligible to us over the next year.
Carol, do we typically get many of those cases during the course of the year?
We don't. I mean, I think this year I've invoiced for maybe 5 total, and each one is, I'm thinking like $1,200. So it's not a huge dollar, and I can't tell you for sure the dollar.
And I asked that question. Nationally, I know that there's a push on to remove all lead piping in the water system.
Yes.
And I know survey going on now.
Yes.
Trying to identify that. Old communities that still have some of that lead piping.
Yeah, that's correct. There was a comment that I was going to make about that. It's us getting paid has a lot to do with and these are children that we're dealing with. So it has a lot to do with younger children. They tend to be the ones that have the high lead because they chew on their beds that are old, or they chew on window sills, play in the dirt, things like that. So these are all about little ones. And there's resistance. People just don't like somebody coming into their home. That's all there is to it. I mean, so.
Lead poisoning can definitely cause
terrible
developmental
problems.
delay, terrible results from that.
And we try to spend a lot of time talking about that with people. And a lot of our educational materials that are paid through our funding are distributed to these patients, parents, but also at the fair and community events so that people are aware. I think it's something that needs a lot of education, and I'm sure we're going to get it out because of the survey that's being done with our lead piping. The next one is the annual survey. This doesn't happen often. It's been a couple years since I think we received this. I just went ahead and put it in and planned for it just in case. And then that's it, unless somebody has any questions.
Any questions, comments for Cheryl? Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
Very thorough. Thank you again.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Central Communication 911. Tiffany, are you up?
Is he still in Colorado?
Yes. You're going to do great.
Of course he will.
We'll see. So I don't know what to do. So you guys are just going to have to ask me questions, I guess. The CAD and the RMS maintenance, that is up 35% because we this year signed a 5-year contract with Spillman Motorola, and it caps our maintenance fee at 4% for the next 5 years instead of it going up 7% every year. And that also is saving each of the the departments, like the police departments and everybody that uses Spillman, they are also being capped at 4%. So that saves the county and the city's money. And then the other maintenance contracts, that went up quite a bit just because everybody wants more money for everything, unfortunately. And those are the two big ones. Our wages went up quite a bit because after budget season last year, we were given the 2 additional personnel. So they're in this budget for 24 to 25.
And it'd be the same as the situation with the health department and those salaries and the budget.
Are you fully,
Yes, we have one opening. So we were fully staffed, and then one of our long-term dispatchers got a job offer from InDigital. So she went to them, but she stayed on part-time. So she's still helping. Yeah, so we have a current process going again.
Been the most stable you guys have been for quite some time.
Very
really.
long time. Yeah, it's very nice. There's not a lot of overtime. It's great for everybody. We're on NIPSCO. Yeah. Oh.
the N-word,
It is what it is.
Yes. I know.
Right now, our electric is way down.
NIPSCO's a wonderful gas company, but it's got the most expensive electric rates in the state. I know Brian was working on a couple of projects about getting some digital pagers for all of the fire departments.
I believe that went through. And there was an additional that was supposed to happen.
I just knew that they were still negotiating with the number from a couple of the departments.
Yeah, everything. So he got all the information back and submitted all the paperwork for everything, and I believe that it's been signed and just doing the additional. Which, do I need to come for that tomorrow, Susan? Do you want me to?
It is a fairly significant amount of money. You probably should be.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll have questions, but it is a big benefit to the fire departments in the county.
Huge. Everybody on the 800 pager at the same time. And then anytime that they need upgrades or, I mean, anything with them, it'll be done at the same time across the entire county. Instead of like, this department needs it 1 year, and then 6 months later, this department needs it. It'll just be a lot more streamlined.
Brian and Tiffany and the whole department, they have done an excellent job in setting up the central communications and working with all of the departments. I mean, they are a great benefit to this county. And I'm sure at sometimes it's like herding cats, especially all the police officers don't want to do things exactly the same. All the firemen don't want to do things exactly the same. And they have to negotiate through all of that. But they have really done a good job. And I know that at least one county is looking to us as a model as to what changes they need to make within their own county. So. There were a few years where we had some controversy, but these guys have pretty much evened everything out.
I believe that he did that just to stay with the 4%, just in case something happens, because I mean, we never know. It's been good for a long time, but never.
Is the 911 fund amount going up this year? Did they give us additional funding?
I am not sure. I can check.
I would
I'll
think
check
that
on
that
that.
would be coming through before too long. And they were gonna take over some expenses.
Right, they took over our entire Frontier bill.
Which that was gonna save us several $1,000s a month, if I remember correctly.
I believe that one was, I want to say it was $4,200 a month. So that's a good
So that's now
savings.
being paid by the state. so.
How has the shared maintenance position worked out for?
Amazing.
Awesome.
Rick is so good. Oh my goodness, that was the best thing ever. He's so good.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Tiffany? Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. You did great.
You're so nervous.
Okay, Becky? Drug-free DeKalb.
Okay, so Drug-Free DeKalb is the Drug-Free Communities Funds. And as some of you may or may not be aware, we have the dollars that are collected each year from drug court fees that are drug and alcohol related. And we actually have extra dollars sitting in that account from some years where we weren't able to expend them out. So we have our basic plan to how that will get expended out. In 2023, we actually collected $35,665.99. With the money remaining in the account from those years, we went into 2024 with $89,220.34. Our plan, as we look at these, is we have to show for the state what is projected to be in that account on January 1 is what we have available. So we're projecting that at $78,000. We actually are planning to spend out for that 2025 is only $50,000 of that dollars. But as we bring those down so that we're gradually spending out the dollars that are those excess dollars, you have to spend out everything that comes in. We have to make the monies that are there available. We don't have to expend those that didn't come in that year. That makes sense? So what the decision had been made with the commissioners and with the council over the past couple of years is rather than, because when we walked in this, we had a lot of money sitting there. Instead of just saying, okay, we're going to spend a whole bunch of money in 1 year, that we would be better planning as to how to extend those dollars more effectively with smaller increments. So that's what the plan is. The plan that we have put together would put us back at even by either 2027 or 2028, depending on how the dollars come in. Now, we did see in 2023, the amount collected was about $5,000 less than the previous years. So there is that concern that those numbers may continue to go down, but we'll have to just see how those roll. Don't have a magic glass. But none of the dollars that come out of this budget come from anything other than the drug-free community. That's exact. Only dollars.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Becky? Thank you, Becky.
All right, thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Short and sweet.
We ended on time.
No, I can't either.
Okay.
I'm shocked.
Okay, it's 12 o'clock. We're on schedule. It's lunchtime, try to be back by 1 o'clock. We'll get started at 1:15.